Chapter 308. Dong dong dong. The sound of war drums echoed in the south of Lanyan City. The 100,000 demon clan troops, and the 50,000 soldiers of Qihai City, were lined up. Their equipment was in place in an orderly manner, and the war was about to begin. Tang Xiaoxi was wearing a black cloak with a golden-purple flower emblem on her chest. Her beautiful eyes were looking at the civilian corpses piled up like mountains in front of her, as well as the southern city wall that was still being repaired after the collapse, where Lin Muyu had died. Tang Xiaoxi's shoulders trembled slightly. She closed her eyes, and tears slid down her snow-white face. She gently raised her long sword and said in a low voice, "Prepare for war. An eye for an eye." Beside her, Ling Huyen was riding a fine horse. Her eyes flashed with a strange look as she said, "Your Highness, the city wall of Lanyan City is already riddled with holes. It's not enough to be a natural stronghold. Let's send the Serpentmen army to charge first. In such a terrain, it's impossible for Iha country to form a cavalry phalanx. The terrain of rocks and weeds is our world." "Okay." Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said to Tang Jin, "General Tang Jin, prepare the bow and arrow array and the spear array. If the cavalry of Iha country comes out, you will resist them. The demon clan is not good at facing cavalry. You should know that." "Yes, Your Highness." Tang Jin cupped his fists, his eyes stern. The sound of war drums became louder and louder. A large number of serpentmen came to the front of the battle array, spitting out their blood-red tongues. Their bodies were covered with scales, and they held steel sabers in their hands. Their brown eyes were full of mania and greed as they looked at Lanyan City. The serpentmen were warlike by nature, and this was an excellent opportunity for them to kill. Facing the thousands of troops outside the southern city, the owner of Lanyan City, the army of Iha country, was moved. Many soldiers had never seen the demon clan. Now seeing the serpentmen and lizardmen brandishing their sabers, they could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Qin Yi, wearing a golden battle robe, stood majestically on a complete section of the city wall. Beside him was a group of Iha country's civil and military officials. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Didn't Qihai City already declare its allegiance to Iha country? Why did Tang Zhen bring Qihai City's army to invade again?" Ji Yao cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Commander, everything is because of Tang Xiaoxi. This princess of Seven Seas City used the Tang Sect's iron order to forcibly mobilize the 50,000 troops under Tang Zhen. In addition, in the Battle of Demon Subduing Pass, Lin Muyu helped her establish some kind of contract with the demon race. Therefore, Tang Xiaoxi possesses the entire demon race's military force. This is something we did not expect." "Bastard!" Qin Yi punched the battlement, causing dust to fly up. He said with an ice-cold gaze, "It's Lin Muyu again. This Lin Muyu really haunts us. Fortunately, Senior Immortal Luolan killed her, otherwise. Humph, I'm afraid it won't be so easy for us to enter Lanyan City. By the way, has Senior Immortal left?" "Yes." Ji Yao said, "We lost a total of 4 Sacred Peak experts this time. Senior Immortal is very angry, and left North Ridge Province yesterday morning. Before he left, he ordered us to build a palace at the foot of Sacred Peak with gold, silver, diamond, glass, and jadeite. I'm afraid this will waste a lot of our national resources." Qin Yi smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter. As long as Luolan is here, our country will not be lost. But right now, Tang Xiaoxi has challenged us, and the demon race is about to attack the city. Why hasn't Long Qianlin returned yet?" Ji Yao pursed his lips and said, "The commander reported that Long Qianlin was injured when he burned the 30,000 Imperial Guards last night. In the morning he had a high fever, so he can't come to command the army." "Humph." Qin Yi frowned and said, "Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used on a single day. He actually fell sick at this time. Long Qianlin is after all not someone our Lingnan generals can compare to. Ji Yao, there are 100 generals in our Iha country. Long Qianlin is not the only one who can lead the army to war. You recommend someone to kill their way out of the city and drive back the demon race army?" "Yes." Ji Yao cupped his fists and said, "How about Great General Lv Zhao? Lv Zhao is from Lingnan and is well versed in the art of war. He is also a general you have personally trained. He can be of great use." "Yes." Qin nodded, his eyes revealing a trace of regret. It's a pity that my great general Lin Yu was killed by that scoundrel Lin Muyu. Otherwise, with Lin Yu's ability, why would he be afraid of a motley crew of 150,000? Pass down my order. LV Zhao will be the main general, and order him to stop Tang Xiaoxi's army. No mistakes are allowed. Yes. Ji Yao raised his head and said, Great General, I just received news that the Empire's remnant, Qin Yin, has been escorted to Dragon Rocky Mountain by the Empire's lackeys from the Longdan army camp. Currently, 3,000 troops from Sunset City are surrounding Dragon Rocky Mountain. What do you think? Qin Yin. Qin Yi clenched his teeth and said, Evil must be eradicated. As long as Qin Yin is alive, she will be thinking of restoring the empire. This is a disaster for all the people in the world. Ji Yao, choose another general and lead 100,000 troops to attack Dragon Rocky Mountain. 100,000? Ji Yao was stunned. Great General, if we split another 100,000 troops, we will only have 200,000 to defend Yulan City. I'm afraid we may not be able to quickly defeat the 150,000 troops led by Tang Xiaoxi. Qin Yi's eyes were cold. A mere Dragon Rocky Mountain can be trampled into powder in the blink of an eye. These 100,000 volunteers will destroy Dragon Rocky Mountain, kill Qin Yin, and then return to Yulan City to attack Tang Xiaoxi's army from the rear. Naturally, they will be able to achieve complete victory. We must be fast. Currently, we still don't know their movements, especially Su Muyun. He controls 250,000 elite troops from Cloud Middle Province, and is already the most powerful feudal lord in the world. Pay attention to Su Muyun's movements at all times. Yes. There's one more thing. Your Highness, is there anything else? Ji Yao asked. Qin Yi narrowed his eyes and said, Feng Jixing. Is he willing to pledge allegiance to us? Feng Jixing? Ji Yao couldn't help but smile. A defeated general isn't enough for great general to think so highly of him, right? A defeated general? Qin Yi smiled. At the foot of Heaven's Wall Mountain, Feng Jixing defeated the Heaven's Core army with 3 retreats and 3 advances, rendering them powerless to fight back. He could even contend with our 200,000 troops with 30,000 Imperial Guards. How could such a person be a defeated general? If it wasn't for Qin Jin's muddle-headedness, with Feng Jixing's ability, I'm afraid he would have long since become the #1 general in the world. Ji Yao was startled and said, But great general, we've already killed all 30,000 Imperial Guards last night. We've even killed Luo Lai and the other generals that Feng Jixing relied on the most. I'm afraid that within a year and a half, Feng Jixing won't pledge allegiance to Iha country. Qin Yi sighed. Feng Jixing is a ferocious tiger. If we can use him, use him. If we can't, get rid of him as soon as possible. Yes. All right. That huge purple crystal. Have you broken it? No, it's very hard and invulnerable. I can faintly see Lin Muyu's silhouette inside. Although he's already dead, but... No buts. Qin Yi's gaze was stern as he said, Take advantage of the night, and order the convoy to secretly transport this purple crystal out of Lanyan City. Find a desolate and filthy place to bury it. I never want to see this person again. Yes. The sound of the war drums grew more intense as a large number of Iha country troops marched out of Lanyan City. Many of their weapons were still stained with blood, the blood of the civilians. The 5 million civilians in Lanyan City were not so easy to kill. The Iha country had only massacred less than a third of Lanyan City's territory. However, the civilians who had not been trampled by the iron hooves were merely rabbits in cages, waiting for the butcher's knife to fall at any time. Perhaps, the fact that Tang Xiaoxi had led the demon race to counterattack Lanyan City had actually saved these people's lives. Seeing the Iha country troops leave the city, Tang Zhen grasped his weapon excitedly and said with a smile, Princess, they're ready for battle. We are about to start the war. Tang Xiaoxi narrowed her eyes. They're all infantry and shield soldiers. What are the Iha country thinking? Do they think that they can defeat the demon race army with wooden shields and padeos? Ling Huyen smiled slightly and said, Your Highness, can the serpent men attack now? Yes. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, General Tang Zhen, you're well versed in the art of war. You'll be in command. Yes. Tang Jin cupped his fists and said, the terrain inside the city is complex and ever-changing. Moreover, we don't know what's going on inside Lanyan City, so the Serpent Men army can only fight the Iha country troops outside the city. When they reach the broken walls, they'll immediately turn back. Just like that, we'll continuously consume the Iha country's troops and rations. Lanyan City will return to us sooner or later. Yes. Ling Huyen smiled slightly and loudly ordered the Serpent Men general in the demon race's language. The Serpent Men general held an iron spear in his hand and roared loudly. Immediately, the majestic army of tens of thousands of Serpent Men immediately charged out. These terrifying Serpent Men had now become the main force in reclaiming the human empire's capital. History seemed to be playing tricks on everyone. A fine drizzle fell on the streets of Muyu City, moistening the city streets. The earth was recovering and spring had returned. The peach and pear blossoms in Muyu City had already bloomed. Su Muyun held a heavy sword in his hand and wore a suit of armor. His face was pale as he raised his head to look at the pear tree in the courtyard. He muttered, spring is here. The snow on the ancient cloud path should have melted by now, right? Beside him, Su Yu's expression was downcast as she said, Father, do you still want to wait? If we wait any longer, I'm afraid that Dragon Rocky Mountain will be breached. Xiaoyin, the last bloodline of the empire, will disappear. Su Muyun smiled faintly and said, don't worry, Dragon Rocky Mountain won't be breached so easily. Xiaoyin is very strong, much stronger than her father. Su Yu revealed a puzzled expression and said, Father, Muyu City refused to send troops, causing Lanyan City to fall. A large number of the empire's soldiers died in battle, and Xiaoyin narrowly escaped death. How can you bear to see this happen? How can I bear to see this happen? Su Muyun looked at the sky and said, I, Su Muyun, only have one son, but he was killed by my son-in-law. You tell me, how can the heavens bear to do this to me, Su Muyun? Qin Jin secretly ordered the traitor Zhang Santong to shoot Hu Tianning and force Xiang Yu to kill Hu Tianning. Did he think that all this was done without anyone knowing? If Lanyan City is in trouble today, it is only because of Qin Jin. Father. Su Yu silently placed her hand on the hilt of her sword and said, I just want to know, when are we going to fight our way out of the Cloud Ancient Road and rescue Xiaoyin? Chapter 309. Pile up the stones and save the arrows. Luo Yu's hoarse roar came from the walls of Dragon Rocky Mountain. His face was stained with blood, and his battle robe had turned from white to gray. A stone wall that was at least 10 meters high was piled up at the mountain gate. Only such a defense could withstand the attack of the Empire's army. Looking from afar, there was a sea of people at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain, and the flags of Iha Nation were raised high. Luo Yu couldn't help but shiver. He exchanged a glance with Wei Chou, but no one knew what to say. I wonder how the commander is doing. Wei Chou held the demon-devouring bow, a trace of worry on his face. Luo Yu patted his shoulder and smiled. Brother Wei Chou, don't worry. The commander is blessed by the heavens. Nothing will happen to him. Sigh. The brothers we arranged at the foot of the mountain have already moved up. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a lack of information. In my opinion, Brother Wei Chou, you can be considered a general with both the pen and the sword. Why don't you join our Longdan army camp and become a dragon-level commander? You don't have to return to the Imperial Army. Wei Chou smiled bitterly. The Empire is gone. How can there be any Imperial Army? To Wei Chou, it's enough as long as I can protect your highness. Alright, then it's decided. You join the Longdan army camp. From today onwards, we will be brothers who will live and die together. At this moment, a group of people galloped over from the mountain. Qin Yin was wearing the plain clothes of a village girl. She dismounted and climbed up the small stone fortress. Beside her, Chu Yao and Qin Yin guarded her. Your Highness, be careful. Chu Yao looked at the foot of the mountain and said, They have many archers. Qin Yin nodded. I'm fine. Sister Chu Yao, you have to be careful too. Qin Yin, protect Sister Chu Yao. Yes, Your Highness. Qin Yin held his shield and guarded in front of Chu Yao, like a god of war protecting her. How's the situation? Qin Yin asked. Luo Yu cupped her fists and said, Your Highness, they've sent at least 50,000 troops, perhaps even more. They've surrounded Rocky Dragon Mountain, most likely intending to take it down in one fell swoop. However, it won't be that easy. Back then, when Lord Commander took down Rocky Dragon Mountain, we had already begun to reinforce it. Even the back mountain has our archers and sentries. The only passageway is easy to defend and hard to attack. Yes. Qinin nodded and asked, is there any news about Big Brother Yu? No. Luo Yu shook her head and said, we've already lost contact with Yen Orchid City, and even the entire continent. All the messenger birds have been lost or flown away. But don't worry, Your Highness. The Lord is blessed and will definitely be fine. Yes. Qin Yin's bright eyes were filled with endless worry as she looked at the Iha Kingdom troops at the foot of the mountain. She couldn't help but bite her red lips and said, perhaps if I go down the mountain and hand myself over to the Iha Kingdom, the 1,000 troops in the Longdan army camp can still be preserved. No. Luo Yu, Qin Yin, Wei Chou and the others all knelt down. Luo Yu raised her head to look at Qin Yin and said, Your Highness, you're the only bloodline of the Qin family. We've risked our lives for the Empire. If anything happens to Your Highness, how are we going to answer to Lord Linmuyu? If we lose Your Highness, we'd rather commit suicide on Rocky Dragon Mountain. Qin Yin also nodded. Yes, my royal father and His Majesty were both killed by the Iha Kingdom. If I don't take revenge, I'm not human. Qin Yin looked at everyone silently and murmured, it's the Empire's fortune that the Qin family can receive such support from everyone. Get up. However, we've been guarding the mountain blindly, and don't know the situation at the foot of the mountain. I'm afraid we won't be able to hold out for long. Chu Yao said, Your Highness, don't worry. There's enough food and water on Rocky Dragon Mountain. It shouldn't be a problem to hold out for a month. And in a month's time, your maternal grandfather should know the situation here, and send reinforcements. I hope so. Qin Yin didn't dare to hope too much for her maternal grandfather's reinforcements. Her eyes flickered with a misty light as she said, I only hope that nothing happens to Big Brother Yu. Be careful, another wave of attacks is coming. Luo Yu narrowed her eyes and looked down the mountain. Archers, get ready. Wei Chou raised his hand and pulled out an arrow from his quiver. They've sent heavy shield bearers. Heh, everyone, put on the white diamond arrowheads. The mountain path can only accommodate 20 people at most. We'll kill as many as they come up. Yes. Everyone nodded. At the foot of the mountain, the Iha nation's shield bearers had arrived. However, after being baptized by the white diamond arrowheads at the mountain gate, they were immediately killed. The white diamond arrowheads were extremely sharp and could pierce through heavy shields. In the blink of an eye, the mountain gate was filled with corpses. More than 500 volunteer soldiers had died on the mountain slope. Be careful of the spears. Wei Chou suddenly lowered his head. Immediately, dozens of spears flew over his head. Luo Yu chuckled and said, They've retreated. As expected, after a round of spears, the volunteer soldiers didn't even have time to clean up the corpses before retreating. Open the gate and pull out the white diamond arrowheads from the corpses. Save them. Yes. When a group of Longdan army camp soldiers were cleaning up the white diamond arrowheads, Chu Yao suddenly frowned. She sniffed and said, Do you guys smell something strange? Yes. Qin Yin nodded and said, It's the smell of oil. Wei Chou was startled and said, It's the black beech oil. Damn it. Are these bastards planning to use fire to attack? I think it's right. Luo Yu pointed into the distance and said, Look, the catapults are already up the mountain. Our place will soon become a sea of fire. Despicable southern barbarians. Wei Chou clenched his teeth. If the Iha Kingdom used a catapult to hurl the flaming black beech oil up the mountain, the consequences could be imagined. Long Qianlin had used this vicious trick to force Feng Jixing to hand over the military power of the imperial army, and now the Iha Kingdom had used the same trick again. At the foot of the mountain, more than 10 catapults were set up in a crisscross pattern. At the same time, the soldiers carried over barrels of black beech oil. On the side, Achillearch's face was full of pride as he said with a smile, Ha! Long Qianlin used 300,000 troops and still couldn't catch Qin Yin. The result is still up to me, Xiaoren, he. At this moment, a group of people charged over from afar. Sitting on a warhorse was a general with 2 gold stars on his belt. It was Sunset City's captaincy Dingxi. Dingxi slowly spurred his horse over and looked at the barrels of black beach oil. He said indifferently, "What are you doing?" Xiaoren cupped his fists and said, "General Ding, the remnants of the Empire on Dragon Rocky Mountain are extremely tenacious. We've been attacking for 3 days and still haven't been able to take them down. Therefore, this general has decided to attack with fire so that they can't defend themselves. This way, our heavy cavalry will be able to trample over Dragon Rocky Mountain." Impudent. Dingxi raised his eyebrows and said, "General Xiaoren, let me ask you, who is the commander of the 70,000 troops besieging Dragon Rocky Mountain?" Xiaoren was taken aback and said respectfully, "Of course it's General Dingxi. You are the commander of the Imperial Commander-in-Chief." "That's good." Dingxi said coldly, "Before I give the order to burn Dragon Rocky Mountain, no one is allowed to attack with fire. Move these nuisances away, and send a large number of soldiers to surround Dragon Rocky Mountain. As long as we cut off their water source, we can take down the Longdan army camp without shedding a single drop of blood. After the northern expedition, our Lingnan soldiers have already lost nearly 150,000 men. We can't afford any more casualties." "Yes." Xiaoren smiled like a villain and said, "It's a blessing for our army that great general is compassionate towards our soldiers. This general will do it right away. We will definitely surround Dragon Rocky Mountain, so that not even a fly can fly out." Dingxi nodded and looked at Xiaoren's departing figure. His eyes flickered and he placed a hand on the cold hilt of his sword. He murmured softly, "General Linmuyu, I respect you as a hero, but Dingxi really doesn't know how I can help you and how I can stop the war in the world." In the spring, the sun was already extremely hot, scorching the earth with no regard for anything else. It was as if all the battles on earth had nothing to do with it. In reality, it did seem to have nothing to do with it. After nightfall, starlight shone on the earth, nourishing all living things. This originally peaceful land was bathed in blood. The villages around Lanyan City were also bathed in blood. Cries of anguish filled the land, and the corpses of civilians were everywhere. Many wild dogs and hungry wolves had already scurried out of the borders of dragon-seeking forest, dragging and devouring the corpses of the massacred civilians. Gulp, gulp. A total of 8 chariots joined together, pulling a huge amethyst rock. The rock was wrapped in black cloth and tied up with ropes. A troop of 1,000 cavalrymen was used to escort the rock. Under the starlight, the caravan entered the dragon-seeking forest in a straight line, all the way to a col deep in the mountains. The Chiliarch leading the troops suddenly frowned. "What's that smell?" "It's the stench." A centurion pointed at the col and said, "Sir, look, there's a dead python here. It's been rotting for a long time. Its bones are already showing." The Chiliarch rode forward and pinched his nose as he looked at the python's head, only to find 10 neatly arranged golden lines. He could not help but frown. A 10,000-year-old python is actually dead. What a pity. Men, dig its head and see if there's any spiritual stones. A few cavalrymen walked forward and checked. "No, it's empty." "Humph." The Chiliarch's gaze turned cold. "Men, bury the purple crystal in this huge pit. A dead man and a dead snake buried together. Ha! It's quite a contrast." "Sir, you're wise." Everyone hurriedly used ropes, crowbars, and other tools to overturn the huge purple crystal and toss it into the valley. Then, they began to dig up the soil and bury it inch by inch. However, the howls of wolves could be heard all around them. When the Chiliarch saw that the purple crystal was covered in soil, he immediately raised his hand and said, "All right, this place is deserted anyway. No one will find this thing. Let's go." The Iha Kingdom soldiers all mounted their horses and left. However, no one noticed that the starlight in the sky was slowly gathering and shining on the soil where the purple crystal was buried, as if it was being guided by some mysterious power. "Linruoji, you bastard! I owed you in my previous life, and I even had to waste my divine power to protect your 3 souls and 7 spirits." A barely audible grumble came from the purple crystal. Chapter 310. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed, but the battle in Lanyan City had not stopped. The Serpent Men and Lizard Men armies were able to fully display their battle prowess in the rocky area. On the other hand, the Iha Kingdom cavalry was unable to use their charging formation, and were repeatedly suppressed. For 5 consecutive days, there was no sign of them repelling the monster race army, and they even lost close to 30,000 men. The city walls were slowly being repaired. Under the canopy, Commander Chini looked at the battlefield below with a livid face and said, "A bunch of trash. They can't even repel the demon race army after so long. They are simply trash." Ji Yao said indifferently, "General LV Zhao has tried his best." Tried his best? Chini smiled coldly. Tried his best to sing praises for himself, right? Cutting off Qin Lei's head, soaking it in medicinal liquid, and sending it to Lingnan. What can this prove? That LV Zhao is the founding father of Iha country? So the commander also knows about this. No matter what, Qin Lei is my nephew. He deserved to be killed for his stubbornness. But after his death, LV Zhao's actions disappoint me. Ji Yao cupped his fists and said, "Actually, it's mainly because Qin Lei is one of Qin Jin's most valued generals, and he is also one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan. Therefore, General LV Zhao probably wants to use Qin Lei's head to boost the morale of Lingnan." Nonsense. Qini was a little angry and said, "Summon Long Qianlin. Unless Long Qianlin comes, I'm afraid no one can defeat Tang Xiaoxi's demon race army." "Yes." Ji Yao nodded, then suddenly looked up at Qin Yi and said, "Commander, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." "Say it." Ji Yao nodded. "Commander, since Iha country's capital is in Bailing City, then Lanyan City is no longer the capital. Moreover, we have slaughtered more than 1 million people in Lanyan City, and have already incurred countless grudges. Lanyan City is already tasteless to Iha country. If we continue to stay here, I'm afraid it will only be a waste of troops and food. Our provisions have to be transported from Lingnan, and it is inconvenient. Lanyan City is very close to Muyu City and Qihai City. I suggest that we withdraw from Lanyan City and set up the garrison in Songnan Province's 5 Valleys City." In that case, Qini narrowed his eyes and said, "Fine. Lanyan City is already in ruins. Let's leave it to Tang Xiaoxi. We'll come back to deal with that little girl when we regroup." "Chief Commander is wise." Ji Yao bowed, then carefully said, "Commander, about the conferring of titles to the 7 marshals, when will it be done?" "Well." Qini took a deep breath and said, "I wonder which 7 generals of the Iha nation are the 7 great commanders in your heart. This general is in the army, so I'm not willing to say too much. I'll let your highness make the decision." "No. It should be up to his majesty to decide, huh?" Qini also revealed a knowing smile. He looked around and said, "This title in the future, don't ever call me that in a place with many people. Don't forget that Iha country belongs to the people of the world. We treat people with benevolence and all living things are equal. There is no king." "Yes, your majesty. Order Long Qianlin to resist the army of the demon race led by Tang Xiaoxi. The conferring ceremony will be held at noon tomorrow." Yes. At noon the next day, the main hall of Zetian Palace was filled with people. The officials of Iha Nation had gathered. For many of them, today was an important day because it was the day of rewards. Ignoring the demon race army that was attacking outside the city, Qini needed to give some encouragement to the soldiers and generals who had been fighting for months. The conferring ceremony begins. An attendant shouted, "Chief Commander, please announce the names of the 7 great commanders of Iha Nation." Qini held the hilt of the Desolation sword in one hand and a scroll in the other. He walked to the front of the throne and said in a clear voice, "The world now belongs to our Iha Nation. The generals have worked hard. Today, Qin Yi has received the mandate of heaven to confer the title of the 7 great commanders. Everyone please remember, treat people with benevolence and all living things are equal. The 100 Mountains Alliance, the Life and Death Pact." Qini paused for a moment before continuing. Ji Yao fought his way from Lingnan to Lingbei and made countless contributions, so he was specially conferred the title of Grand Marshal. Qin Huan fought his way through Lingdong Province and Tongtian Province, so he was conferred the title of Vice Marshal. Lu Zhao won every battle he fought, so he was conferred the title of third marshal. Man Fong, the son of Earl Xiang, Man Ning, was valiant and invincible, so he was conferred the title of fourth marshal. Li Qianxuan, the hero of Ling Nan, was conferred the title of fifth marshal. Ding Shi, the descendant of a famous general of Xiang City, was conferred the title of sixth marshal. Immediately, the officials congratulated each other. These 7 marshals would undoubtedly be the future leaders of the entire Ihe nation. Naturally, they would be recommended and fawned upon by everyone. Lu Zhao smiled coldly and said, I thought I could get a second marshal. I didn't expect to only get a third marshal. Ji Yao couldn't help but laugh. Young Prince Qin Huan is the son of the commander. Why? Is General Lu Zhao unhappy about this? I wouldn't dare. Lu Zhao looked at Long Qianlin, who was behind him, and smiled. General Long Qianlin, on the other hand, has been invading the imperial capital like a hot knife through butter. You've even defeated Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, and other famous generals of the empire. I originally thought that General Long would be a great marshal, but I didn't expect you to be ranked last. Hee. Long Qianlin placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and said calmly, General Lu Zhao, you're flattering me. I, Long Qianlin, am just trying to overthrow the empire for the sake of the people. I don't seek fame. It's already my great honor to be ranked as one of the 7 marshals. I heard that General Lu Zhao commanded 200,000 troops, but couldn't do anything to a group of demons. I wonder if that's true. Lu Zhao said angrily, Long Qianlin, watch your words. Long Qianlin said proudly, how did I not watch my words? Ji Yao tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, both of you are famous generals of the Ihe nation. Don't lose your bearing. General Long, the Ihe nation's army is about to retreat to Five Valley City. The heavy responsibility of defending Lanyan City will fall on your shoulders. Oh right, His Majesty. Oh no, the commander can only give you 50,000 troops. I wonder if you can stop Tang Xiaoxi's 100,000 troops. Why not? Long Qianlin said calmly, 50,000 troops is enough. Ji Yao laughed and looked at Ding Shi. It's already the 6th day. If General Ding Shi still can't take down Mount Dragon Rocky and capture Qinin, the daughter of a tyrant, I'm afraid we, the 7 marshals, won't have the face to face the people anymore. Ding Shi's gaze was indifferent. He cupped his fists and said, I'm incompetent. I still can't take down Mount Dragon Rocky. Please forgive me, Marshal. Ji Yao laughed coldly and said, what's there to talk about forgiveness? You and I are both generals who have contributed to the Ihe nation. However, General Ding Shi really should speed up. I heard that Yunzhong province has been mobilizing troops frequently recently. That old fox Su Muyin should be making a move soon. Yes. In the afternoon, the Ihe nation's army began to retreat from Lanyan City in a mighty manner. At the same time, they plundered all the wealth in Lanyan City. The caravans that transported goods stretched for hundreds of miles as they made their way to Five Valley City in an endless stream. At the same time, the road was filled with patrols carrying steel sabers and killing the people. The haze of death still hung over Lanyan City. The 7th Marshal, Long Qianlin, commanded 50,000 troops and horses and faced off against Tang Xiaoxi's army outside Lanyan City. The next day, news came from afar that 200,000 troops from Yunzhong province had come out and intercepted the Ihe nation's army on the road between Lanyan City and Five Valley City. Su Muyun's daughter, Su Yu, personally led the troops and defeated the Ihe nation's army. In the crushing defeat, the Ihe nation lost nearly 50,000 troops and fled to Five Valley City. The tens of thousands of troops that besieged Mount Dragon Rocky also retreated from the dense forest to Five Valley City under Ding Shi's command. The letter flew out of his palm. Long Qianlin leaned against the broken bricks of the broken wall and suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Captain C was dumbfounded and said, General, why are you laughing when the Ihe nation has suffered such a crushing defeat? Retribution, retribution. Long Qianlin held onto the ice-cold bricks and said with a sneer, the Ihe nation ignored my obstruction and launched a massacre at Lanyan City. This is retribution. Ha ha ha. Su Muyun, that old fox, is finally willing to send troops. I'm afraid this world is no longer the Iha nation's world. At this moment, a scout galloped over from afar. He cupped his fists and said, General Long, I've just received news that the Seven Seas Pass has been opened. Tang Lan has led 100,000 troops out of the Seven Seas Pass and is heading straight for Lanyan City. Humph. Long Qianlin's eyes turned cold and he said, Tang Lan, that old fox, finally can't stand it anymore? Heh. It's really not easy for that old fox to endure until now. Captaincy said, General Long, Seven Seas Pass and Sunset Rain City have sent their troops together. We are destined to lose Lanyan City. Yes. Long Qianlin nodded and said, Do you know why I want the remaining 50,000 cavalrymen of the Iha nation? It's not to kill the Naga army, but to run faster. Captaincy was stunned. General Long, you already knew that the Iha nation would lose 3 days ago? Qin Jin is dead, and the empire is leaderless. It's time for Tang Lan and Su Muyin to come out of their nests and share this delicious cake, isn't it? Yes, General is wise. What should we do now? Order everyone to bring their rations after nightfall, and leave the city through the east gate. Don't disturb any citizens. Also, no one is to massacre the city again, or else they will be killed without mercy. Yes, where are we going? Sword Garrett, back to Lingnan. We don't want Five Valleys City anymore. Captaincy's face turned green. We can't defend Five Valleys City any longer. Long Qianlin said indifferently, Instead of going to Five Valleys City to throw our lives away, why don't we go to Sword Garrett and clear the obstacles on the way back to Lingnan? Yes. That night, in the silence of the night, 50,000 cavalrymen of the Iha nation left Lanyan City, leaving a capital riddled with holes for Tang Xiaoxi outside the city. In the early morning, dew moistened the land of Lanyan City and the wounds of the city. Tang Xiaoxi slowly spurred her warhorse into the capital. Looking at the city gate that had been reduced to powder, tears flowed from her eyes. Mu, you're not dead. Tell Xiaoxi that you're not dead, right? Tang Zhen's eyes reddened as he said, Princess, General Lin Muyu, he is indeed worthy of being called a famous general, but he has really left me. No, he won't. Tang Xiaoxi murmured. Chapter 311. In the Zetian Palace, almost all the treasures in the palace had been plundered. The Iha kingdom was like a group of bandits as they ransacked this world-famous palace. When Tang Xiaoxi led the army into the Zetian Palace, it was already empty and no longer as prosperous as it used to be. Fortunately, Long Qianlin could be considered a benevolent general and had burned down the Zetian Palace. He didn't even set fire to Lanyan City before he left. Otherwise, this famous city that had existed for thousands of years would have been burned to the ground. Ling Huyen led the 3 Fox tribe generals and followed closely beside Tang Xiaoxi. They looked at the black mass of corpses in front of the Zetian Palace. Their eyes were filled with reluctance, but they remained silent. One of the Fox tribe generals curled his lips and said, The humans say that we demon tribe are cruel and ruthless. Now it seems that the humans are not much better. They might even be worse than us. The Naga leader at the side stuck out his tongue and hissed something. The captaincy of the Seven Seas City placed their hands on the hilts of their swords and lined up on another long red carpet in the Zetian Palace. They looked respectfully at Tang Xiaoxi and waited for her next order. Duke Lan's army will arrive at Lanyan City in 3 days. Tang Zhen said respectfully, Princess, shouldn't we be prepared? After all, you led the army to recapture Lanyan City on your own. Although it is a great achievement, you didn't get Duke Lan's approval and mobilized the 50,000 soldiers of the Seven Seas City. Moreover, we lost more than 10,000 people. Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. It's all right. I will bear all the responsibility alone. Tang Zhen, have you calculated how many people the Iha kingdom killed in Lanyan City? Tang Zhen's expression was solemn as he said, I don't have detailed statistics for now. However, looking at the situation, at least 1 million civilians in Lanyan City were slaughtered. The corpses piled up like mountains outside the city is enough to prove this. In addition, the massacre caused countless civilians to flee Lanyan City. Lanyan City has lost a lot of its population. In addition, the surrounding villages and towns have been massacred many times. I'm afraid that Lanyan City which is known as the #1 city in the world, has far less than 5 million people left. It would be fortunate if half of its population could be preserved. Got it. Tang Xiaoxi sat gently on the throne and said, "It's easy to cause a plague when the corpses decompose, so immediately organize people to bury and burn the corpses of the victims. In addition, send out an imperial notice to recall the refugees. Tang Zhen, go to Lanyan City and summon all the officials of the Ministry of Revenue who are still alive, as well as all the officials of the counties and counties. Have them organize people to bury the corpses and repair the walls and houses. We must restore order and livelihood in Lanyan City as soon as possible. I can't let Xiaoyin return to see a lifeless Lanyan City. Everything must be running again." "Yes, I understand." Tang Zhen cupped his fists and said, "But princess, the monster race's army has already entered the city, but the serpent men, lizard men, and bear men aren't humans after all. Once Duke Lan's army of 100,000 arrives, I'm worried that it will cause a misunderstanding. So, in my opinion, the monster race's army has already helped the humans recover the imperial capital and can be sent back." "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi gently nodded. Linghu Yen bowed and said, "Your Highness, I'm here. The monster race's army has made a great contribution this time, but I really have nothing to reward you with. In order to avoid another war between the humans and the monster race, immediately take my order and go to the demon-subduing pass. Return to the Forest of Infinity. I will visit you again." "Yes, Your Highness." Linghu Yen turned around and said loudly to the group of monster race generals, "Monster warriors, did you hear what Your Highness said? You are the pride of the Forest of Infinity. Now go home." "Yes, Your Highness." The group of monster race generals bowed in unison, turned around and left. Tang Zhen blinked and said, "I will escort the monster race out of Lanyan City." Tang Xiaoxi smiled. "Yes, have a better attitude." "Yes, Your Highness." At the edge of the dragon-seeking forest in the midst of spring, birds were singing and flowers were fragrant. In the sound of horse hooves, Su Muyun, dressed in a black duke's robe, was surrounded by people with his hand on the hilt of his sword. Su'er rode the horse side by side, gazing into the distance and said, "Father, we are about to arrive at Dragon Rocky Mountain. According to the report from Yushu, the Longden army camp has been cut off from rations and water. The Iha country has besieged them for half a month, and the number of people in the Longden army camp has been reduced from more than 1,000 to more than 400. Su Muyin nodded. After the chaos in the Iha country, the major mercenary groups in the imperial capital did not obey the emperor's orders. A mere Longden army camp can actually burst out with such great power. They really cannot be underestimated. Su'er said, "Father, the founder of the Longden army camp, is the emperor's foster son Lin Muyu." "I know." Su Muyin pulled the reins and said, "You is a genius, but unfortunately, he died in the hands of Luo Lan. Sigh, it is really the empire's misfortune. I wonder how Xiaoyin is doing on Dragon Rocky Mountain. What you need to worry about is the situation in Lanyan City." "Yes." At this moment, a white messenger bird descended from the sky and landed on Su'er's shoulder. She took the bamboo tube, took out the letter and glanced at it. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she said, "Father, Long Qianlin's 50,000 heavy cavalry has retreated from Lanyan City. Now Lanyan City has been attacked by Tang Xiaoxi's troops." Tang Xiaoxi, Su Muyin sighed and said, "Lanyan City has been massacred, and all the feudal vassals have either submitted to the Iha kingdom or gone into hiding. No one would have thought that Tang Xiaoxi would lead the monster race army to declare war on the Iha kingdom. What a loyal and affectionate princess of Seven Seas City. However, with Tang Xiaoxi controlling Lanyan City, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous for us." Su'er was stunned. "As long as we receive Xiaoyin, we can help Xiaoyin ascend the throne. Do you think Tang Xiaoxi will refuse to let us enter the city? That's enough. Let's hurry up and get Xiaoyin." "Yes." When the Muyu City army arrived at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain, the people of Dragon Rocky Mountain were shocked. However, when they saw the Muyu City army waving the empire's purple Yinhua flag, Luo Yu was the first to jump off the city wall and ordered, "Scouts, go and see where they are from." Don't fall into the Iha Kingdom's trap. Yes. A scout galloped away, holding a purple Inhua flag in his hand, and directly came to the front of the Muyu city army. He said loudly, "Our Lord Luoyu wants me to ask, where are you from?" In the crowd, Su Muyin slowly rode out, cupped his fists and said respectfully, "The Cloud Province's Grand Duke Su Muyun is here to receive you. Please tell Her Highness In that grandfather is here." The scout was stunned, and his eyes widened and he said, It's really the Muyu City Army?" Su'er said, "How could it be wrong? I am Her Highness Yin's aunt, the commander of the Zither Dragon Army Suyu. Just tell Her Highness the truth." "Yes." The scout turned and left, and Qin Yin, Chu Yao Qin Yan, and the others also came after hearing the news. Qin Yin's face was full of excitement. "Is grandfather really here?" "Yes, Your Highness." Luoyu cupped her fists and said, "It's true." Qin Yin excitedly rode away, and she said with a smile, "Everyone follow me to welcome grandfather." Yes. The group went down the mountain, and when they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they saw Su Muyun and Suyu from afar. Qin Yin's eyes instantly turned red, and tears swirled in her eyes. She leaped into Su Muyun's arms, and she cried loudly, "Grandfather, why are you only here now?" Su Muyun's body trembled, and he hugged the Empire's princess in his arms. He gently stroked her hair, and he said, "Xiao Yin, don't cry, it's all my fault. It's all my fault that I couldn't send my troops in time. Father is dead, Qin Lei, and Chu Huayin are all dead." Qin Yin slowly let go of Su Muyun, and she said, "Grandfather, you are more well-informed than me. Tell me, how is Big Brother Yu, and where is he now?" Su Muyun's expression darkened, and he didn't speak. At the side, Suyu flipped off the horse and she gently stroked Qin Yin's shoulder, and said faintly, "Xiao Yin Lin Muyu he was intercepted by Luo Lan in Lanyan City, and he died for his country." "What?" Qin Yin stood there in a daze, and tears flowed out of her eyes. The golden god binding chains around her started to spin uncontrollably, and it caused Suyu and Su Muyun to retreat. In the next moment, Qin Yin suddenly fell to her knees, and she seemed to have lost her soul, and she muttered to herself, No. Suyu's heart ached and she said, "Xiao Yin, be strong, the Empire needs you." Behind her, Luoyu, Fengxi, Qin Yan, Wei Chou, and the rest all knelt in the direction of Lanyan City. Wei Chou's eyes were blood red, and he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Commander, if you die just like that, what will happen to us? What will happen to the Longdan army camp in the future? Commander, why did someone like you die? Tell me, Wei Chou, why did someone like you die?" Chu Yao stood there in a daze, and tears flowed down her face silently. The blow she suffered was probably no less than Qin Yin's. With Chu Huayin's death, Lin Muyu was her only relative. Now that she received the news of Lin Muyu's death, it was like a bolt from the blue. Su Muyin looked at Qin Yin, and his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. He held her arm and said, "Xiao Yin, be strong. We are going home soon, and rebuilding Lanyan City and recovering the Empire is your mission." Qin Yin murmured, "Where is Big Brother Yu's corpse?" "I don't know. Maybe it has been transported away by the Iha nation." "How could they do this?" Tears rolled down Qin Yin's beautiful eyes and she said, "Why did the Iha nation do this? Didn't they say that all lives are equal?" Su Muyin clenched his fists and said, "Xiao Yin, pull yourself together. Only you can summon the brave warriors of the Empire to take revenge." Qin Yin nodded and said, "Grandfather, let's go home. Zetian Palace Hall needs us." "Okay." Su Muyin said loudly, "Send Her Highness to the carriage. Quick, go to Lanyan City at full speed." "No, I won't take the carriage." Qin Yin shook her head and flipped onto the horse. She said calmly, "From today onwards, I will never take the carriage again." Su Muyun. Chapter 312. Overgrown weeds grew between the cracks of the bricks on the city wall, and they swayed repeatedly when the spring breeze blew. Tang Zhen pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword, and stood on the city wall like a stone statue, supervising the commoners who were repairing the city wall in the distance. The broken wall had already been rebuilt to half its height, and smoke curled up from the chimneys in the city. The soldiers of the spiritual medicine department were preparing the commoners' lunch. Suddenly a soldier pointed into the distance and said, "Commander, look! There are people coming from the direction of Seven Seas City." Tang Jun was slightly stunned, and he looked into the distance. Sure enough, smoke and dust billowed in the distance. Not only were there people coming, but there were many of them. The 100,000-strong army of Seven Seas City was finally about to arrive at Lanyan City. However, they only arrived nearly 20 days after Lanyan City was massacred. Go get Princess Shi. Yes. Not long after, Tang Xiaoxi walked up the city wall in a white embroidered robe, and a few Seven Seas City captaincy followed behind her. She slowly came to Tang Jun's side and said, "Send a cavalryman out of the city to ask where they came from. Close the city gates, and don't trust anyone easily." "Yes, Princess." Tang Jun did as he was told, and the cavalryman galloped over quickly. He cupped his fists at Tang Xiaoxi, who was on the city wall, and said, "Princess Shi, Commander Tang Jun, it's young Master Tang Lu and young Lady Tang Wei from Seven Seas City. At the back, young Master Tang Tian is escorting Duke Lan over. The 100,000-strong army of Seven Seas City is about to arrive at Lanyan City. Young Master Tang Lu asked me to inform Princess Shi and order her to open the city gates and go out to welcome Duke Lan." Tang Lu and Tang Wei. Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips, and her eyes flickered with uncertainty. She said, "Tang Jun, pass down the order to close all the city gates of Lanyan City and send a large number of soldiers to guard it. Prohibit any soldiers of the Empire or volunteers from entering Lanyan City." "Ah, Princess?" Tang Jun was shocked and said, "This isn't very good, right? After all, we are all soldiers of Seven Seas City, and Duke Lan is personally leading the army of Seven Seas City to reinforce Lanyan City. It's fine if you don't come out of the city to welcome us, but why do you have to close the city gates?" Tang Xiaoxi said faintly, "There is only one master of Lanyan City, and her name is Qin Yin. Unless Qin Yin comes to Lanyan City in person, I won't hand Zetian Palace over to anyone. Tang Jun, don't forget that we took back Lanyan City from Iha Nation at the cost of the lives of more than 10,000 soldiers. Now I'm the master of Lanyan City." "Yes, I understand." Tang Jun wanted to say something but hesitated. After a few seconds, he cupped his fists and said, "I'm willing to follow the Countess until death." "That's good. Go and pass the order." Yes. The city gates of Lanyan City were closed, and Tang Xiaoxi stood on the city walls with her sleeves fluttering in the wind. She looked at the dense crowd of people of Seven Seas City gathering in the distance. An hour later, nearly 30,000 soldiers of Seven Seas City formed a formation outside the city. Two generals riding white horses galloped over. They were Tang Lu and Tang Wei. This made Tang Xiaoxi feel a little uneasy. Tang Lan had 3 sons. The eldest was Tang Xiaoxi's father, who had passed away, and the second was Tang Jin. Tang Jin had 3 children. The eldest was Tang Bin, who had been killed by Lin Muyu in the dragon-seeking forest. The second was Tang Lu, and his daughter, Tang Wei, were the 2 below the city. Tang Lu, who was dressed in silver armor, had already recognized Tang Xiaoxi. He spurred his horse forward and said, "Xiaoxi, quickly open the city gates. Grandfather's caravan is about to arrive. What are you waiting for?" Tang Xiaoxi approached the city walls and said with a smile, "I'll have to trouble second brother and little sister to go back and tell grandfather that Lanyan City has just suffered from a massacre. The city is not yet stable, so it's not suitable to station an army. So grandfather, please station Seven Seas City outside the city." "Xiaoxi, what do you mean?" Tang Lu suddenly frowned and asked. "Boring." Tang Xiaoxi smiled. "Second brother, look at the 2 sides outside the city walls. What is that?" Tang Lu's gaze swept over and said indifferently, "So what if there are corpses piled up like a mountain?" Tang Xiaoxi giggled. "Second brother, you also know that they are corpses? Then do you know why these people have become corpses? That's right, it's because the army of Seven Seas City hasn't come out yet. If the 200,000 people of Seven Seas City had come out in full force like now, these people wouldn't have died. Chu Huaying wouldn't have died, Qin Lei wouldn't have died, and Mu wouldn't have died either." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Tang Lu's gaze was cold as he said, The Seven Seas City is the foundation of our Tang clan, and the might of the righteous Harmony Nation is great. Even if we go all out, it would only be like striking a rock with an egg. Little she, quickly open the city gates, otherwise, what are you going to do? Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Otherwise, I'll flatten this broken city. Tang Lu raised his spear high and shouted, Soldiers on the city walls, you are all soldiers of my Tang clan. Have you forgotten the iron rules of the Tang sect? Immediately open the city walls and welcome Duke Lan's army into the city. However, the soldiers on the city walls didn't move at all. In fact, none of them even looked at Tang Lu. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Second brother, don't waste your efforts. They are soldiers of the Tang clan, but before that they are soldiers of the empire. Not all of them are rebellious and want to ascend to the throne. Go back and tell grandfather that unless Xiao Yin returns to Lanyan City, I won't open the city gates to let any soldiers in. If you want to enter the city, then come and attack. Archers, get ready. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A row of archers drew their bows in unison and aimed at Tang Lu, Tang Wei, and the rest below the city walls. Tang Lu had been spoiled and domineering since he was young. He had never suffered such humiliation before. His expression was cold as he said, Good, you guys did well. As a member of my Tang clan, you actually dared to aim your arrows at me. Tang Zhen, I'll remember you. Tang Zhen cupped his fists on the city walls and said with a smile, I'm sorry, second young master. This general listens to the iron orders of the Tang clan, and is currently only loyal to Princess Shi. Moreover, I, Tang Zhen, am a soldier of the empire. My loyalty to the empire will never waver. Bah! Tang Lu raised his spear and said, Men, prepare the catapults. Attack the city for me. Tang Wei hurriedly pulled Tang Lu's arm and said, Brother, don't mess around. Go back and tell grandfather about the situation here. If we really start a war with Xiaoxi, I'm afraid it'll get out of hand. Humph. Tang Lu gritted his teeth and spurred his horse to turn around and leave, vanishing like a wisp of smoke. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, Tang Lu and Tang Wei returned to the central army camp with pale faces. They bowed to Tang Lan from afar and said, Grandfather, Lanyan City isn't willing to open the city gates to welcome the 7 armies. What's going on? Tang Lan's face was pale, and he shivered in the night wind. He wrapped his robe and armor and said, Haven't Xiaoxi and Tang Zhen already taken control of Lanyan City? That girl and Tang Zhen have already committed treason. Tang Lu said coldly, Moreover, Xiaoxi even ordered people to shoot at me with bows and arrows to force us to leave the city walls. How infuriating. Treason? Tang Lan smiled and said, Xiaoxi secretly mobilized the army of the Tang Town barracks, and summoned the guards of the Demon Clan to take over the large Lanyan city from the Iha country. If this is considered treason, then we are all traitors of the country. Grandfather, you. Tang Lu couldn't understand Tang Lan's thoughts and said, Grandfather, now it's Xiaoxi, this rebellious descendant of the Tang clan, who is obstructing us from entering Lanyan City. Tang Lan sighed and said, What did Xiaoxi say? Tang Wei blinked and said, Big sister Xiaoxi said that unless Her Highness Qinin personally comes, otherwise she won't open the gates of Lanyan City. This Lanyan City can only belong to Qinin and no one else. So she asked grandfather to station the army of the 7 Seas City outside the city, and once Her Highness Yin returns to the city, she'll naturally accept the army of the 7 Seas City. Is that so? Tang Lan's brows knit together tightly, and he waved his hand and said, Tang Lu, Tang Wei, both of you go make arrangements to set up camp outside the city. Since Xiaoxi won't come to welcome this old man into the city, then we'll wait outside the city. Yes. Tang Lu and Tang Wei spurred their horses and left. Tang Lan sighed and remained silent. At the side, a general whose face was shrouded in a cloak smiled and said, What a joke. The granddaughter has occupied the city, but she won't let her grandfather enter. This is truly a strange story. However, it seems that Duke Lan doesn't vent his anger on Princess Tang Xiaoxi. Why is that? Tang Lan turned around and glanced at him, saying with a faint smile, Can't General Xiang see? All the sons of the Tang family are mediocre, only Xiaoxi is an exception. Although she's a woman, she dares to do what she wants. When the Iha country's army of nearly 500,000 surrounded Lanyan city, who in the world dares to oppose them? Only I, this rebellious granddaughter, had the courage to stand up and contend with Ji Yao, Long Qianlin, Ding Shi, and the other famous generals without being defeated. The mysterious general smiled and said, "This is the truth. In the entire Tang sect, only Tang Xiaoxi is the most courageous and resourceful." So, Tang Lan sighed and said with a smile, "No matter how rebellious Xiaoxi is, I can't be angry with her. She is my greatest pride and the only hope of our Tang sect." "Then what do you plan to do now, Duke Lan? Are you just going to guard outside Lanyan city?" "No." Tang Lan's eyes flashed and he said, "The Iha country has seized more than half of the empire's territory, but now they are at the end of their rope. They can only retreat again and again. The army of Muyu City in Yunzhong province has also come out. We can't wait, and we don't have time to wait. We must seize more land before Qin Yin steps into Lanyan City." "Duke Lan is wise. What do you need me to do?" "I'll give you a group of men. You must attack the Earth Star province, which is directly south of Lanyan City. You must seize Cold Star City and make it our territory. Tell me, how many men do you need?" 2,000 cavalrymen are enough." Xiang Yu smiled confidently. 2,000? Tang Lan also smiled. "You're indeed the descendant of the god of war, Xiang Wentian. This arrogance is indeed not something an ordinary person can have. I'll give you 3,000 cavalrymen. You must seize the entire Cold Star province within 3 days. Can you do it?" "Yes, General Xiang." Chapter 313. Starlight sprinkled on the earth. On the official road between Lanyan City and Songnan Province, the sound of horses' hooves was dense. Under the moonlight, the Empire's war flag's golden-purple flower fluttered in the air, very bright. Qin Yin, dressed in a dark purple princess cloak, once again set foot on this abandoned land. All sorts of feelings welled up in her, but most of them were nostalgia for the deceased. She looked at Lanyan City under the moonlight from afar, her heart indescribably uncomfortable. When she thought of Lin Muyu dying in battle at the south gate of Lanyan City, Qin Yin's heart ached as if it was pierced by thousands of arrows. "Grandfather, I want to enter the city from the south gate," she said softly. Su Muyin looked at her with heartache and nodded. "Yes, we will listen to Xiao Yin." Beside him, Su Yu turned around and ordered, "Pass the order to the 3 armies to wait in the north and east of the city. The front army will follow Her Highness to the south gate. No one is allowed to clash with the army of Qihai City, otherwise, they will be punished according to military law." Everyone nodded in unison. Wei Chou, Chu Yao, and Qin Yin followed closely behind Qin Yin. They all knew the reason why Qin Yin went through the south gate. At night, the cold wind blew. Qin Yin wrapped her clothes tightly around her chest. Her beautiful eyes looked at the newly repaired south gate. There were still huge cracks and traces of newly built walls on the wall. Even the gate was pieced together. Its defense could be said to be very weak. However, the swaying purple flower war flag on the wall was like iron chains, stabilizing the crumbling building. On the city wall, the torch swayed. Tang Zhen's eyes were stern as he said, "Is it Her Highness Qin Yin's men?" Wei Chou flew forward and looked up. "General Tang Zhen, don't you recognize me, Wei Chou?" Tang Zhen had mixed feelings. "It's Lord Wei Chou, of course I know him. Her Highness Yin. Where is Her Highness Yin? Princess, she wants to see Her Highness Yin, can she?" In the crowd, Su Yu held a steel knife and stood in front of Qin Yin saying, "Shield formation, protect Her Highness." Yes. A group of people guarded her left and right, but Qin Yin smiled and said, "No need, disperse. Anyone in this world can harm me, but Xiaoxi will never." She urged her horse forward and slowly walked out of the crowd. Strands of golden god-binding chains coiled around her body. She raised her head and looked up at the city. "Little Shi, it's me." On the city wall, a golden light soared into the sky. Tang Xiaoxi, who could not control her emotions, turned into a 9-tailed demon fox. Her 9 fiery red tails swayed slowly, and she jumped down from the city wall. Under the control of her power, she slowly landed. When she raised her head, her eyes were already full of tears. She cried and said, Xiaoyin Mumu is dead. Qinin looked at her with tears flowing down her face. Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi. The two sisters hugged each other and cried in grief. They both understood how it felt to lose a loved one. Everything could never go back. It was like a house on fire. Looking at its gray walls and broken walls. Even though they knew it was home, they could never go back. The sound of hooves slowly approached. Chu Yao mounted the horse and put her hands on Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin's shoulders, saying, Xiaoyin and Xiaoxi, don't cry. If you is watching from heaven, he would want to see your smiles instead of you grieving for him. Doesn't the Yui no always face everyone with a smile? Yes. Qin Yin lowered her head and wiped away her tears, saying, I know. I know. As she spoke, she looked deeply at Tang Xiaoxi and held her hand, saying, Xiaoxi, you've suffered. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid the empire would have been doomed. Tang Xiaoxi murmured, I thought I could save Mu, but I didn't. I'm really useless. No. Qin Yin softly said, You've already tried your best. I'm the useless one. I've always needed someone else's protection, but I can't help anyone. I'm the burden. Xiaoyin, don't say that. You're the empire's only hope. Only you can unite this disintegrated continent. At this moment, Su Muyun and Su Er rode over. Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, Old subject Su Muyun greets Princess Shi. Tang Xiaoxi hurriedly said, You're too polite, Duke Yun. I'm just a junior, so I can't accept such a greeting from Duke Yun. Tang Xiaoxi greets Duke Yun. Ha 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 ha. Su Muyun laughed and said, I heard that Princess Tang Xiaoxi is guarding Lanyan City, and doesn't even allow the Seven Sea Cities army to enter the city. She's waiting for Xiaoyin alone. This old subject is touched by her loyalty and friendship. Since that's the case, our Twilight Rain City's army won't enter Lanyan City anymore. Tang Xiaoxi smiled faintly and said, Lanyan City is already riddled with the flames of war. If Duke Yin doesn't mind, then you can station outside the city. The heavy responsibility of rebuilding Lanyan City requires even more troops, and the 200,000 troops that Duke Yun is leading will be just enough to help. All right. Su Muyin cupped his fists and said, The Twilight Rain City's army is under Her Highness Ho Yin and Princess Shi's command. Then, shall we enter the city? I heard that Duke Lan is also outside the city. Quickly send someone to invite him into Zetian Palace. Yes. As they passed through the south gate, Qin Yin raised her head and looked at the huge pothole on the city wall. Her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Big brother Yu, is he there? Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said in a sobbing voice. Yes, it's said that when Mu was killed by Luo Lan, a Catasaurus created many dragon crystals to protect Mu's body. However, these dragon crystals were secretly taken away by the Iha nation's bastards. No one knows where Mu's body is. I've sent many people to look for it, but there's been no news. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were filled with hatred as she said, This debt must be paid with blood by the Iha nation. Also, send more people to find Big Brother Yu's body. Su'er cupped his fists. I understand. I'll definitely send more people to look for him. Yes, thank you, Aunt Air. You're too polite, Your Highness. This is what I should do. Everything in the capital seemed to have been destroyed, but it still retained its original appearance. As they passed by the Holy Temple and the Spiritual Medicine Department, they saw that the two temples had been destroyed by the fire. However, the sturdy walls and stone buildings were still there. On the ground, there was a huge pothole that was being filled up. Everyone urged their horses to go around it. Qin Yin couldn't help but take another look. Tang Xiaoxi said faintly, Great Deacon Lei Hong was killed by the hierarch Luo Lan here. Grandpa Lei Hong. Qin Yin's eyes dimmed as she said, How did Big Brother Qin Lei die? Tang Xiaoxi's expression darkened as she said, Commander Qin Lei was surrounded and killed by Ji Yao's cavalry archers. His body was hit by hundreds of arrows, and in the end his head was chopped off by LV Zhao. It's said that LV Zhao soaked Commander Qin Lei's head in a potion and sent it back to Ling Nan. Bastard. Qin Yin clenched her fists, tears in her eyes. The revenge of Iha nation must be repaid with blood. Yes. Qin Yin continued. The Holy Temple, the Spiritual Medicine Department, and the Fire Sparrow Department are the pillars of the empire. They must be rebuilt as soon as possible. The spiritual medicine department has been severely damaged. Send some talented alchemists from Seven Seas City and Sunset Rain City to the capital. Su Muyin cupped his fists. Yes, this old subject will handle this matter. Qinin nodded. Thank you, grandfather. Also, the spiritual medicine department needs someone skilled in alchemy and medicine to take charge. Sister Chu Yao, I will now officially appoint you as the great deacon of the spiritual medicine department. Are you willing? Chu Yao was stunned. She nodded. Chu Yao understands. Yes, thank you, Sister Chu Yao. What are you thanking me for? Chu Yao was stunned. Qinin smiled faintly and said, in order to protect the imperial capital, Lord Chu Huayin, a genius, died in battle outside the city. Sister Chu Yao, as an employee of the spiritual medicine department, protected me for a long time at Dragon Rocky Mountain. I understand what the empire owes the Chu family. Chu Yao's expression darkened. She said indifferently, if that's the case, the people the empire owes are you and Commander Feng Jixing. General Feng. Qin was startled and said, where is General Feng now? Su Er cupped her fists and said, Your Highness, General Feng Jixing led 30,000 troops to fight the rebels at the foot of Heaven's Rod Mountain, and was surrounded by 300,000 soldiers. Long Qianlin lied to General Feng and caused 30,000 soldiers to be killed in Fire Badger Valley. The current Feng Jixing isn't the same Feng Jixing as before. He has lost his will to fight. Every day he buries the corpses of those soldiers. The people I sent to invite him back were all chased away. On the side, Su Muyin said, Xiao Yin, Feng Jixing is a famous general, and in terms of leading troops, he isn't any weaker than Long Qianlin. However, he is too kind. Now that the empire needs people, grandfather thinks, Xiao Yin, you should find a suitable chance to personally head to Fire Badger Valley and invite Feng Jixing back to Yanlan City. Let him recruit from the millions of people in Yanlan City to form an invincible army. And I will. Qinin licked her red lips and asked, Is there any news of Chu? No. Su Muyin shook his head and said, However, there are rumors that some people saw Chu meet Luolan in the north of the city. That night, flames shot into the sky, and many people suspect that Chu died for his country. After all, a saint venerable definitely isn't a match for a godly venerable. Understood. Qin Yin's eyes turned red and said, The chaos in Iha country caused us to lose our loved ones. We must remember this blood debt for the rest of our lives. Yes. Su Er nodded. Qin Yin said, Grandfather, Xiao Yin has something to ask of you. Speak, Xiao Yin. In the Qin family's imperial mausoleum, build a monument for the fallen soldiers and call it the Nation Guarding Monument. All the soldiers who can remember their names must leave their names on the Nation Guarding Monument. Is that okay? Su Muyin was stunned. But those who aren't from the nobility don't have the right to enter the Qin family imperial tomb. No, if I say it is okay, then it is okay. Yes, I will follow your orders. Don't worry, Your Highness. I will come up with a name list for the Nation Guarding Monument. And thank you, grandfather. Chapter 314. The Zetian Palace was brightly lit, and everything was the same as before. The only difference was that there were fewer people and treasures. Tang Lan led the ministers of Qihai City into the imperial capital. In the middle of the night, no one had the slightest desire to sleep, because this night was too important for the empire. This was the first meeting between the emperor and his ministers after the war. It also meant that there would be a new direction in the distribution of power in the empire. With the help of Tang Xiaoxi, Qin Yin walked step by step to the throne. When she lifted the hem of her skirt and sat down gently, all the ministers knelt on one knee and shouted, Your ministers greet your majesty. Your majesty? Qin Yin shook her head and said, Just call me your highness. In my heart, Father is the real radiant king. Moreover, the empire has fallen apart and the territory is less than half of what it used to be. I am no longer the emperor. Su Muyin nodded and said, Yes, your highness. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes flickered with a beautiful light. She looked at the crowd and said, Tell me how many troops of the empire are in Lanyan City now. Don't hide anything. Su Muyin cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, Muyu City currently has a total of 210,000 troops stationed around Lanyan City. Among them, 50,000 cavalrymen are at Your Highness' disposal at any time. Tanglan cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, this old minister has also brought 110,000 troops from Qihai province. In addition to Shaoxi's 40,000 troops, Qihai City has a total of 150,000 troops stationed around Lanyan City. At the same time, this old minister has already ordered Qihai province to recruit troops. In less than a month, we will be able to recruit another 100,000 troops. You've worked hard, Duke Lan. Qinin smiled. In the crowd, Zhenghua General Ling Nantian also cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, this old general has been gathering the scattered troops of the empire around Lanyan City these days. Now there are more than 7,000 people gathered around Lanyan City, and they are at Your Highness' disposal at any time. Thank you for your hard work, General Ling. Qinin nodded her head again. At this moment, Qin Yan, the son of King Yuning, who was standing behind Tang Lan, raised his eyebrows and growled with a hint of anger on his face. You are all princes of the empire with hundreds of thousands of soldiers in your hands. When Lanyan City was surrounded by the Iha kingdom, Chu Huaying, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, and Qin Lei fought against the Iha kingdom's army with their lives. Where were you? Are the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in your hands just for show? Or are you waiting for the fall of the empire to divide the soup? These words caused Tang Lan, Su Muyun, Ling Nantian, and the others to be dumbstruck, and no one actually dared to reply. At this time, Qinin stood up and said in a gentle voice, Qin Yan, there's no need to say any more. The heavy snow has sealed the ancient path in the clouds, and Muyu City's army wants to reinforce Lanyan City, but is powerless to do so. As for the Seven Seas province, hasn't Shaoxi already led an army of 50,000 to come to the rescue? I believe that every one of the empire's ministers here is loyal. Qin Yan gritted his teeth and said, Yes, Your Highness. Qinin raised her head and glanced at Tang Lan, saying with a smile, Duke Lan, Shaoyin has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Tang Lan was startled and said, Your Highness, speak. This old subject is listening. Shaoxi leads the troops well. Moreover, you have interacted with the 40,000 soldiers of the Sharp Peak Battalion under Tangzhen for a long time. Why not hand over the military authority of these 40,000 soldiers of the Seven Seas City to Shaoxi? Lanyan City is being rebuilt, and the situation is chaotic. I want to let Shaoxi lead this army of 40,000 soldiers and hold the authority of the Imperial Army before the Imperial Army is rebuilt. Is that possible? Qinin looked at Tang Lan calmly and said. Tang Lan's gaze was calm as he cupped his fists and said, Your Highness is the monarch of a nation, and your words carry enormous weight. The Sharp Peak Battalion is the army of Seven Seas City, and also the army of the Empire. This old subject will do as you say. Good. Qinin smiled faintly and said, Promote Tang Zhen to the Western General, and rename the 40,000 troops under him the Nation Guarding Army. They will all be under your command. In addition, you must listen to Tang Xiaoxi. Other than Shaoxi and me, you don't need to listen to anyone else. Understood? Tang Zhen cupped his fists excitedly. This general obeys the decree. By the side, Tang Xiaoxi also snickered secretly and said, Shaoyin is really smart. However, it was obvious that Tang Lan wouldn't be too happy with Qin Yan's separation of military power. These 40,000 soldiers would be renamed the Nation Guarding Army, and Tang Zhen would be replaced by a group of trusted subordinates, such as captaincy and kiliarchs. Then the military power of this army would really be completely in the hands of Qinin. In fact, Qinin also knew that although she was now the ruler of a nation, the military forces were not in her hands at all. She could not guess the thoughts of her grandfather, Su Muyun, at all. Tang Lan, on the other hand, was a person who kept a low profile and bided his time. No one knew where the future of the empire lay. When Iha Nation attacked Lanyan City, it was a battle. But now, it was a battle of power without the shadow of a sword. A map was unfolded in the center of the main hall. There were burn marks on the edges, but there was no other way. Zetian Palace was almost completely looted, and there was no way to find a second map. It was too late to ask the craftsmen to draw a temporary one, so they could only make do with it for now. Qin Yin stepped down from the throne, and her pale golden boots stepped on the blood-red carpet to the side of the map. She said lightly, Lanyan City is adjacent to Cangnan Province, Tianshu Province, and Earthstar Province. Since Lanyan City has been recovered, the next step is to recover these 3 provinces. If anyone has any suggestions or opinions, please feel free to voice them out. Ling Nantian cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, Yuchi Tian of Tianshu Province is a two-faced villain. He previously surrendered to Iha Nation, but now he has sent a letter saying that he is willing to return to the Empire. The 40,000 Tianshu army under him is even more willing to fight at the forefront for the Empire. Despicable villain. Wei Chou clenched his fists and said, It was this army who sent a fake letter and deceived General Feng into leading 30,000 Imperial soldiers out of the city. Otherwise, Lanyan City might not have to suffer this disaster. Qin Yan said angrily, Your Highness, you must reject Yuchi Tian's surrender. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. No. Qin Yin waved her hand and said, The Iha nation still has nearly 300,000 troops. We are not sure that we can win, so we should try to gain as much strength as possible. Later, we will send people to take over the Heaven's Pivot Province. At present, we only have to deal with 2 cities, the Five Valley City and the Cold Star City. Tanglan said, Your Highness, you don't need to worry about Lungxing City. I have already sent General Xiang to lead 3,000 cavalry to attack. With General Xiang's ability, I believe that Lungxing City will be taken in less than 3 days. Oh. Qin Yin was startled. I wonder which General Xiang is Master Lan talking about. General Xiangyu. Xiangyu. Qin Yin was stunned. Wasn't Xiangyu secretly executed by Lord Chu Huayin? Tang Lu, who was beside Tang Lan, cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, you may not know this, but Lord Chu Huayin is a benevolent general with a kind heart, so he didn't kill Xiangyu and only ordered him to go far away. Grandfather knows Xiangyu's ability, so he sent people to find Xiangyu who lived in seclusion when the empire fell. He gave him a troop and ordered him to work for the empire again to make up for his mistakes. I see. Qin Yin nodded. That's good. As long as Xiangyu can conquer the rebel army in Lungxing City, he will be forgiven for his previous crimes. Thank you, Your Highness. Tang Lan cupped his fists and bowed. As for Wugu City, Qin Yin blinked and said, According to the military intelligence, Zhennan King Qin Yi, that old thing, will personally lead 200,000 troops to guard Wugu City. I wonder who is willing to attack Wugu City. Tang Lan was silent. Everyone was also very quiet. It seemed that no one was willing to challenge the 200,000 troops of Wugu City. At this moment, Zhennan General Ling Nantian cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, since all the generals are so modest, this old general is willing to go. I only hope that Your Highness can allocate more troops for this old general to attack Wugu City. After all, this old general only has less than 10,000 troops under his command. Qin Yin smiled and said, In that case, Duke Lan, grandfather, each of you will allocate 50,000 troops for General Ling to attack Wugu City. How about that? Su Muyin cupped his fists and said, Yes, Your Highness. Although Tang Lan was unwilling, he couldn't do it openly, so he also cupped his fists and said, This old subject will gather 50,000 troops tomorrow and hand them over to General Ling Nantian to command. Your Highness can rest assured. That's good. All the provisions will be provided by Qihai City and Muyu City respectively. Yes. Everyone had their own thoughts, so they didn't say much. Qin Yin took a cup of tea from the maid and took a sip. She sat on the throne and waited for everyone to report anything else. Su Yu whispered to Su Muyin, Father, why don't we attack the Five Valley City ourselves? Why do we have to hand it over to Ling Nantian, an old general who hasn't been on the battlefield for a long time? What if we lose 50,000 men? They are our elite soldiers. Su Muyin shook his head and said softly, Do you think I don't want to? But Qin Yi has many famous generals under his command. The newly conferred 7 marshals of the Iha nation are all there. Ji Yao, Lv Zhao, Ding Shi, and Long Qianlin. None of these people are easy to deal with. As for us, After your brother's death, there is no real general in the Muyu city who can take charge of an area. If father asks you to personally lead the troops to attack the Five Valleys city, do you have a chance of winning? Su'er was stunned and said helplessly, I am not as brave as brother, so I really don't have the confidence. Yes. Su Muyin said calmly. Follow father to Fire Badger Valley tomorrow. Why are we going to Fire Badger Valley? To find Feng Jixing. If we can get Feng Jixing's help, our Muyu City army will be invincible. Yes. After a while, Wei Chou suddenly cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, I have something to say. Qin Yin looked at him and smiled. Sir Wei Chou, just say what you want to say. Yes. Wei Chou looked at Qin Yin with clear eyes and said, Although Sir Lin Muyu died for the country, the Longdan army camp is still there. I hope that your highness can allow us to rebuild the Longdan army camp. As long as the Longdan army camp is there, Sir Lin Muyu's soul will be there. Qin Yin was moved and her eyes turned red. The Longdan army camp is Brother Yu's private army. Okay, I will immediately promote Sir Wei Chou to rank 4 general, and be the commander of the Longdan army camp. Luo Yu, Feng Shi, and Qin Yan will be deputy generals, and be the deputy commanders of the Longdan army camp. The Longdan army camp will be the official army of the empire, and the funds will be taken from the empire's treasury. Tomorrow we can recruit new soldiers in Lanyan City. Yes. In the mountains, the crystals buried deep in the ground shone with a faint purple light. A voice continued to grumble. Is my god power not enough to wake you up? How long are you going to sleep for, Lin Ruoji? Do you really want to wait until Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi marry someone else and have kids before you wake up? Spiritual sense fluctuations are stronger? Hee Lin Ruoji, it seems like you still care about these bitches. Quick, then wake up for this great emperor. Chapter 315. Winter passed and spring came, but Fire Badger Valley didn't have any signs of spring at all. What replaced it was a deathly silence. The newly grown grass in the soil was turned to ashes by a huge fire. At the same time, the 30,000 lives of the guard's army died. Bugs flew about the valley and the stench filled the air. A few wild dogs were fighting for the leg of a guard army soldier, and rotten liquid splattered all around. Bastard! A blade energy flashed across and instantly 2 wild dogs were sliced into 2. Feng Jixing walked forwards and grabbed the leg of the guard army's corpse. He placed it in the deep hole at the side, and then continued to drag the other corpses. His originally handsome face was now filled with death energy. Feng Jixing stumbled and black spots appeared on his wrists and face. That was the sign of the corpse poison invading his body. Luckily he had high cultivation. If it was a normal person who lived in such an environment for so long, they would have died long ago. Do. The sound of horse hooves spread out and a bunch of cavalry galloped into Fire Badger Valley. It was Su Muyun, Su Yu, and the others from Muyu City. Su Yu saw it clearly and pointed. Father, General Feng is there, but this place, it smells, and Su Muyun nodded and said, Let's go over. The bunch of them avoided the rotten corpses of the guard's army, and came to Feng Jixing's side. Su Yu got off the horse and cupped her fists. General Feng, do you still recognize me? I am Cloud Province Duke Yun's daughter, Su Yu. Feng Jixing dragged a corpse step by step to the deep hole, and placed it in. It was as if he didn't see Su Yu and the others arrive. Su Yu frowned and said, General Feng, you are. Feng Jixing grabbed the wind cutter blade that was stabbed into the ground. His gaze turned cold and he said, Are you all here to steal the corpse? Scram, otherwise don't blame me for being merciless. Su Yu stood there in a daze. General Feng Yu. On the side, Su Muyin got off the horse and held a golden staff. He looked calmly at Feng Jixing and said, General Feng, the 30,000 soldiers are the pride of the empire. Are you willing to let them rest in this desolate Fire Badger Valley? Don't tell me. You have the heart to let the beasts dig the soil and eat their corpses? Feng Jixing suddenly stopped in his tracks, and looked at the ground that was covered with dark red blood stains. Su Muyin continued, General Feng, Her Highness Qin Yin isn't dead. She has returned to Zetian Hall. Now Lanyan City is back in the hands of the Empire. Cloud Province and Seven Sea Province have hundreds of thousands of troops protecting Lanyan City. Iha country has already retreated back to Five Valley City. Moreover, Her Highness Qin has already ordered the construction of a country-guarding monument to bury these soldiers who sacrificed their lives for the empire. In my opinion, the 30,000 soldiers should be buried under the country-guarding monument. What does General Feng think? Feng Jixing turned around and stared at Su Muyun with a pair of beast-like eyes. He said calmly, Su Muyun, do you think I, Feng Jixing, don't know what kind of person you are? The capital has been surrounded for so many days, and the people of Cloud Province can even crawl over. Yet, you allowed Lanyan City to be ravaged by the Iha country bastards, and caused Her Highness Qinin to die. Now that the Radiant King is dead, I'm afraid that all the power in the world is in your hands, right? Su Muyun was taken aback. He said, General Feng, as Duke Yun, I didn't even hold you accountable for killing my son, Su Qin. Why do you have to get to the bottom of it and hold me, Su Muyun, accountable for my negligence? If you were a father, you would do the same thing. Right now, Xiaoyin is my Su Muyun's only hope. The only thing I want to do is for Xiaoyin to become the ruler of this world and raise the Iha nation to the ground. What do you want me to do? Feng Jixing asked calmly. Su Muyun smiled. Command the army of Twilight Rain City, and sweep across the northern mountains. First, drive the Iha country bastards from Lingnan to the south of the Qinling Mountains. Now that the empire has many things to do, Xiangyu has been reactivated by Tanglan, Chu Huayin and Lin Muyu have died in battle. Xiaoyin and I can only use you. I hope that General Feng will come out of seclusion again for the sake of the people of the empire. Olchu. You. Feng Jixing frowned and tears welled up in his eyes. He lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and looked at Su Muyun and Su Yu. He said, I, Feng Jixing, am a sinner. I will only leave after I bury my 30,000 brothers. Moreover, I can't just listen to your side of the story. Before I see the nation-guarding monument and Her Highness Qinin, I will not serve anyone. Got it? Su Muyun nodded. I will prove it to you. As he spoke, Su Muyun got on his horse and shouted to the guards. The few of you stay here and gather firewood to cremate the bodies of the imperial guards. Bring their ashes to the nation-guarding monument. In addition, go to Great Deacon Chu Yao and summon the medical officer from the spiritual medicine department to come here and treat General Feng's injuries. No one is to be negligent. Everyone cupped their fists together. Yes, Sir Yin. On the way back, the mottled shadows of the trees scattered on the ground. Su Yu held the reins and frowned. Her black cloak swayed gently behind her. You, what are you thinking about? Su Muyun asked. Su Yu smiled faintly. Father, I'm thinking. Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin and Qin Lei. These four are indeed outstanding. It's a pity that the heavens are jealous of their talents. Now only Feng Jixing is left. Outstanding. Su Muyun smiled thoughtfully. Outstanding people can't go against the heavens. The death of Chu Huayin, Lin Muyu, and Qin Lei was the will of the heavens. The fact that Feng Jixing is still alive means that the heavens are looking out for the Qin Empire. They gave us the bloodline of a famous general. Otherwise, we won't be able to fight against the powerful Iha country. Yes. Su Yu nodded and said, Father, what are you thinking? Can you tell me? Me? Su Muyun was stunned. What am I thinking? The future, the empire. Sigh. Su Muyun sighed and said faintly, Xiaoyin is still young, but she has to bear everything in front of her. The Iha country will definitely make a comeback. Tanglan, that old fox, is also eyeing us covetously. The only thing we can do now is to protect Xiaoyin and the royal power of Lanyan City. Don't let Tanglan have the upper hand. I'm afraid that when the time comes, that old fox might cripple Xiaoyin and make Tang Xiaoxi the empress. Ah. Su Yu opened her mouth in shock. It can't be. After all, Xiaoyin has the bloodline of the Qin family, but Tang Xiaoxi doesn't. Who knows? The premise is that we have a stronger military force than the opponent. But we don't have an absolute advantage against the Qihai province, so everything is hard to predict. You try to delay the dispatch of troops to Wugu City. It would be better if we can delay it until Feng Jixing comes out of seclusion. Father, you don't believe in Ling Nanshan's ability to lead troops. Su Muyan smiled lightly. If Ling Nantian is really a famous general, I'm afraid Lanyan City won't be in such a miserable state. Alright. You, send more people to the southern border and the western region to find the lost troops of the Empire. You must find the whereabouts of Du Hai. He is the first warrior of the Empire. If we can use him, it will be even more powerful. Yes, Father. On the 11th of May, news of victory arrived. Xiang Yu, with a force of 3,000 cavalrymen, had successively conquered Cold Star City, Buga City, and a total of 11 cities in the Earthstar province. Other than Cold Star City, which resisted slightly, the other cities had already surrendered. On the morning of the 12th, Xiang Yu led the army back to Lanyan City, and was welcomed by the people of Lanyan City. In Zetian Palace, Xiang Yu led a few trusted generals into the main hall. He smiled and cupped his fists in a dignified manner. General Xiang Yu greets Your Highness Yin. Qinin nodded. General Xiang Yu has made great contributions in quelling the rebellion. Thank you for your hard work. Tang Lan cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, General Xiang Yu is free to quell the rebellion. Moreover, the Empire is in need of manpower at this time. Therefore, this old official suggests that Your Highness promote General Xiang Yu to the second-rank State General. Su Muyan frowned and said, Duke Lan, although General Xiang Yu has made great contributions, he is still a sinner. Isn't it too much to promote him to the rank of State General after conquering a mere Earthstar province? Tang Lan smiled. Duke Yin, the Iha Empire's army has swallowed our empire's territory. It is not easy to take back every inch of our land. Moreover, General Xiang has conquered the entire Earthstar province. Su'er said. What Duke Lan said makes sense. However, if General Xiang Yu can be promoted to the rank of State General after conquering a province, wouldn't he be promoted to the Empire's Marshal if he conquered 2 provinces in a row? Haha. Tang Lan laughed. General Su Yu is not inferior to men. What you said is very reasonable. How about this? Your Highness, this old official suggests that General Xiang Yu be promoted to the 3rd-rank State General. What do you think? Wei Chou, who was in the crowd, was slightly displeased. He cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, the title of State General originally belonged to Lady Lin Muyu. Tang Lan's gaze turned cold. Although Lin Muyu died in the line of duty for the Empire, she is still a deceased person. Why not? Qinin stood up and said lightly, Since Duke Lan insists on conferring the title of Xiang Yu, then let's do as you say. Someone promote Xiang Yu to the rank of State General, and bestow him with the sword seal. I hope that General Xiang Yu can continue to serve the Empire and recover the land. This general obeys. Xiang Yu smiled and happily knelt on one knee. Qinin looked up at the crowd and asked, How is the battle at Five Valley City? Su'er cupped her fists and said, Reporting to Your Highness, General Ling Nantian has led 100,000 troops to Five Valley City. Yu Shu reported that the siege is urgent, but Five Valley City is guarded by Lingnan's famous General Ding Shi. There are 200,000 troops inside, and there are also the troops from Tongtian province. So it is difficult to attack in such a hurry. I'm afraid it will take some time to take down Five Valley City. Yes, do a good job in defending Lanyan City and prevent the Iha Empire from invading again. Yes, Your Highness, rest assured that this general will do a good job. Su'er was full of confidence. If she was asked to lead 100,000 troops to attack, she would not be able to do it. But if she was asked to lead tens of thousands of troops to defend the city, this was something she could handle. Chapter 316. Lanyan City, Qin's Imperial Mausoleum. Tens of thousands of people worked together to send the remains of the fallen soldiers into the Imperial Mausoleum. The total number of soldiers who died in the Battle of Lanyan City had exceeded 100,000. A huge dark stone tablet was lined up in a row, and the craftsmen were lying on the bamboo ladder, carving the names of the fallen soldiers onto the nation-guarding monument with tinkling sounds. The nation-guarding monument at the front was also the largest. The names of 10,000 imperial warriors were densely carved on it. Her Highness has arrived. A guard shouted. The craftsmen knelt on both sides of the road. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, Qin Yin led Chu Yao, Tang Xiaoxi, Wei Chou, Qin Yan and the others into the imperial mausoleum. Everyone dismounted one after another. Qin Yin lifted the tassels on her skirt and walked forward step by step. Looking at the names on the nation-guarding monument, she could not help but burst into tears. Chu Yao also looked up at the names on the nation-guarding monument. Her eyes turned red. Brother. Tang Xiaoxi's nose turned sour. Looking up at Lin Muyu's name, her tears flowed down silently. Wei Chou, Qin Yan, Luo Yu and Feng Shi, the 4 generals of the Longdan army camp, quickly knelt on one knee and remained silent to show their remembrance. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the names on the nation-guarding monument glowed with a golden luster. It was as if it was telling the world the story of the past and those people from the past. Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, Qin Lei, Chu Chu, Lei Hong, Si Kongfan, Yuan Xie, Zhuge Yun, Meng Fong, Luo Lai. According to Qin Yin's ranking, Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin and Qin Lei were the top 3. Chu Chu and Lei Hong were the 4th and 5th respectively. Following them were the governor of Five Valleys City, Si Kongfan, and the former protector of the nation, Yuan Xie and the others. Among them, the highest-ranking general of the imperial army was Luo Lai, who was ranked as the deputy commander. He was also Feng Jixing's most trusted subordinate. Your Highness. Su Yu stood to the side and helped Qin Yin up. She said softly, the dead are gone. I believe Lord Yu and Chu Huayin will be watching us from the heavens. They will be gratified to see us reclaim the empire's territory. No. Tang Xiaoxi looked at the nation-guarding monument with determination and said, Xiao Yin, I feel that Yu is not dead. It's as if he's still by our side. This feeling can't be wrong. Yu is not dead. Qin Yin looked at Tang Xiaoxi in astonishment and said, Xiaoxi, you also have this feeling? Me too. Qin Yin silently looked at Lin Muyu's name on the nation-guarding monument and said, he said he would come back to me, so he definitely wouldn't lie to me. Su Yu helplessly sighed and said, this is just your wishful thinking. Many people saw that you died in battle. This is an indisputable fact. Auntie C, don't say any more. Qin Yin pursed her lips and murmured, I will wait for him. He will come back. It's that simple. Just as she had said to Lin Muyu. The mountains are long and the rivers are far. We will meet again if we are fated to. But would they really meet again? Ai, silly girl. Su'er shook her head and did not try to persuade her anymore. Year 7731, 20th of June. 1 month after Ling Nantian set out. The battle report came. Defeated. What? Defeated? Qin Yin angrily asked. How did they lose so thoroughly? The messenger trembled as he knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, reporting to your highness. Ding Shi privately contacted Yu Qitian in the Heaven's Pivot province, so Yu Qitian sent 20,000 Heaven's Pivot soldiers out to cause trouble. That night, Ding Shi led 100,000 soldiers out to attack and successfully defeated Ling Nanshan's army. They are currently regrouping. Regrouping? Qin Yin laughed. What use is there in regrouping? Yu Shu orders Ling Nantian to retreat, and Su Yu to lead 50,000 soldiers to welcome the defeated army. If the Iha kingdom pursues, immediately counterattack. Su Yu cupped her fists. Yes, your highness. Tang Lan cupped her fists. Your highness, since Ling Nantian has been defeated, we must appoint a new general. Otherwise, I'm afraid the Iha kingdom will take advantage of this and attack Lanyan city. At that time, we will fall into a passive state. What Duke Lan said makes sense. Qin Yin looked at the crowd. Is there any other general who can go to war for the empire and extinguish the arrogance of the Iha kingdom? Su Muyin frowned. Feng Jixing was not willing to come out of seclusion. Although there were thousands of generals in Muyu City, there was not a single one who could really shoulder the responsibility. Those were only talented generals and not commander-in-chief. At this time, one of the generals cupped his fists and said, Xiang Yu is willing to go to war. Oh. Qin Yin smiled slightly. How many soldiers does General Xiang Yu want? Not too many. Xiang Yu looked up at Qin Yin and said, Your Highness, I only need 50,000 elite soldiers under Duke Lan to take down the Five Valleys city for your highness. Only 50,000? Qin Yin frowned slightly and said, Zetian Palace does not joke. General, please be careful. Only 50,000. Xiang Yu repeated and said, if I cannot take back the Five Valleys city with 50,000 elite soldiers, I, Xiang Yu, am willing to accept military law. Good. Qin Yin nodded. Approved. Immediately send the troops to war. Yes. After the meeting, Su Muyun and Su Yu entered the rear hall together to see Her Highness. Grandfather, you must have something to say, right? Qin Yin sat down and said with a smile. Su Muyun nodded and cupped his fists. Xiaoyin, do you know the situation in Planet Earth Province? After Xiang Yu took over Planet Earth Province, he left 3 trusted generals to guard Cold Star City and other important cities. He also recruited soldiers and bought horses on his own in the name of strengthening the empire, but he did not report to the Ministry of War at all. Qin Yin nodded and said, yes, special times call for special treatment. But in the long run, I'm afraid Tanglan's wings will become more and more plentiful. Now 7 Seas City has another 100,000 new soldiers, and they are intensifying their training. In addition to the 30,000 soldiers they recruited in Planet Earth Province, Tanglan's military power is getting stronger and stronger. If this time, Xiang Yu goes to war and defeats Yihe Nation, I'm afraid Five Valleys City will also fall into Tanglan's hands. Su Muyin said worriedly. Even the officials we sent to take over Planet Earth Province's military power and political power have been taken over. We have to be wary of Tanglan's heart. Qin Yin said softly. I know, but we can only rely on Duke Lan now. If not, who would be willing to help the Qin family get rid of the traitors of Yihe Nation? Su Muyin took in a deep breath and said, most of the 30,000 corpses of the Fire Badger Valley Guard's army have been moved into the country protecting monument. Your Highness, if you have nothing to do in the afternoon, why not follow us out of the city to invite Feng Jixing back to Lanyan City? Feng Jixing. He blames himself too much. If not for your Highness personally inviting him, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing to return to Lanyan City. And let's head out now. Okay. It was early summer, and butterflies danced outside Fire Badger Valley. Qin Yin was wearing a white royal dress and a dark blue cloak, the same color as the imperial military uniform. This time, she brought a total of 5,000 cavalrymen of Muyu City out of the city, in addition to the 500 guards of the Brave Dragon Battalion, so there was no room for error. In addition, there was an additional group of people in the crowd. This group of people was wearing white robes, with the badge of the Imperial Army on their shoulders. In the wilderness, Feng Jixing sat there in a dejected manner. His long hair was scattered and even his beard had grown out. The horse hooves slowly stopped. Qin Yin got off the horse and stood in front of Feng Jixing. She said softly, General Feng. Qin Yin, Your Highness. Feng Jixing's body shook. He raised his head and looked at Qin Yin's beautiful face. He muttered, Your Highness. Is it really Your Highness? If it isn't me, who else can it be? Qin Yin smiled. She didn't mind that Feng Jixing was covered in mud. She held his arm and said, General Feng, I am here to invite you back to Lanyan City. However, Feng Jixing retracted his hand as if he was electrocuted. He knelt on the ground and took a few steps back. His forehead knocked heavily on the ground several times in a row. In the blink of an eye, his forehead was covered in blood. He said with a trembling voice, Sinner Feng Jixing can no longer return to Lanyan City. Why not? Qin Yin asked sadly. Feng Jixing's eyes turned red. He said, the 30,000 brothers of the Imperial Guards trusted me, Feng Jixing, and were willing to disarm themselves. However, they were massacred. It's all my fault. I can die 10,000 times. I am a sinner covered in blood. I don't have the face to return to Lanyan City. Your Highness, please grant me death. If I die under Your Highness's sword, Feng Jixing can die in peace. I don't have to suffer anymore. No, you can't die. Qin Yin looked at him and said, If you die, who will avenge Brother Yu? Who will avenge Lord Chu Huayin? Who will avenge Commander Qin Lei? You can't die. Feng Jixing knelt on the ground and buried his face in the soil. He wailed. At this moment, A group of people wearing the armor of the Imperial Guards walked out from the crowd. Their faces were full of grief. The leader was a bearded man. He slowly knelt on the ground and murmured, "General Feng, old Zhang has brought the brothers to see you." Feng Jixing trembled. He raised his head and saw Zhang Wei and the group of Imperial Guards. He couldn't help but cry, "Zhang Wei, it's Zhang Wei. You guys didn't die, you guys didn't die?" Although Zhang Wei was a rough man, he still knew how to be loyal. Tears flowed from his eyes as he knelt on the ground and said, "Have you forgotten General Feng? Before you left for Mount Tianming, Lord Lin Muyu asked you to leave 1,000 of us to defend the city. He was the one who saved the torch of the Imperial Guards." "You that brat." Feng Jixing was inconsolable. He sat on the ground in a sorry state. Tears dripped onto his rotten armor as he murmured, "I've let my brothers down, I've let you down, I've let old Chu down. I, Feng Jixing. I'm a sinner, an unforgivable sinner." Qinin looked at him and walked forward again. Her body trembled as she knelt in front of Feng Jixing. She held his arm and said, "General Feng, Xiaoyin is now the monarch of the Qin Empire. Now is the time for you to atone for your sins. Follow me back to Lanyan City and lead the troops into battle. You'll become a general of the Qin Empire again. The more Iha Kingdom's traitors you kill, the more you can wash away the bloodstains on you. Are you willing to pledge your loyalty to me, Qinin, again?" Feng Jixing trembled and slowly knelt down. "Feng Jixing is willing to follow your highness for the rest of my life. I'll be loyal to the empire until death." Chapter 317. In Zetian Palace, Feng Jixing freshened up and put on the white robe Imperial Forest armor again. This was the new armor Qin had prepared for him. The Qin Empire originally had 6 experts who enjoyed the title of White Robe Imperial Forest: Du Hai, Feng Jixing, Chu Chu, Qin Lei, Lei Hong, and Yao Yuan. Now Du Hai was missing, Chu Chu, Qin Lei, and Lei Hong had died in battle, and Yao Yuan's whereabouts were unknown. In the vast Qin Empire, Feng Jixing was the only remaining White Robe Imperial Forest. On his collar, behind the purple flower, there were 3 gold stars. This was the rank of a commander. Feng Jixing's heart skipped a beat. He felt as if thousands of arrows were piercing through his heart. Zhang Wei was promoted to the deputy commander of the Imperial Army. In addition, Feng Jixing had taken Xia Hoseng away from the Longdan army camp. Therefore, both Zhang Wei and Xia Hoseng followed behind Feng Jixing. It looked quite imposing. "Congratulations, General Feng." Tang Lan cupped her fists and smiled. Feng Jixing nodded. "Thank you, Duke Lan." However, behind Tang Lan, Tang Tian, Tang Lu, Tang Wei, and the other Tang clan generals all had looks of jealousy on their faces. They seemed to understand that Feng Jixing's return was a great provocation to the Seven Seas city's Tang sect's strength. After all, Feng Jixing was Qin Jin's old general, and also one of the empire's 7 divine generals, a famous general of the present age. Feng Jixing submitting to Qin and Su Muyan was definitely not a good thing. Qin sat on the throne and said, "Feng Jixing is loyal, brave, and unyielding. I am specially promoted to Jinghua General and Commander of the Imperial Army. I order you to rebuild the Imperial Army of Lanyan City. In addition, your first mission is to lead 50,000 troops around the dragon-seeking forest and go straight to Tianshu province. Bring Yuqi Tian's head to me. General Feng, can you do that?" Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, "Rest assured, Your Highness." Xiang Yu had once been a sinful general under Qin Jin's edict, so there were people who stopped him from being promoted. However, Feng Jixing was originally one of the imperial commanders, so there was nothing wrong with him being promoted to second-rank state general. At the side, Su Muyan smiled and said, "General Feng, the 50,000 elite troops have been prepared for you. You can take a rest tonight. Tomorrow, we will set off for Dubhe province." "Yes, Duke Yin." Feng Jixing was very respectful. He also knew that the military power of the empire was not in the hands of Qin Yin, but in the hands of Su Muyan and Tang Lan, the 2 guardian Grand Dukes. He had to be polite to these 2 people. That night, in the Forbidden Army's main camp, Zhang Wei and Xia Hoseng were preparing their war horses, weapons and armor. They were all beaming with joy, but Feng Jixing was carrying a wine jar. He mounted his horse and said, "I'm going out for a walk. You guys stay here and wait for my orders." Zhang Wei hurriedly said, "Commander, let me bring a team of guards with me. The empire is in turmoil, and it's not safe anywhere now." Feng Jixing's laughter came in the wind. "Don't worry. Who in Lanyan City has the ability to kill me now?" Zhang Wei was speechless. Just as Feng Jixing said, Xiang Yu had set off for the war. There was no one in Lanyan City who could be a match for Feng Jixing. The starlight scattered on the ground. Feng Jixing rode his horse straight into the imperial mausoleum. In the distance, the nation-guarding monument glowed brightly under the starlight. Feng Jixing sat beside the nation-guarding monument and looked up at the names of Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, and Qin Lei. He drank a mouthful of strong liquor and felt that the liquor burned his throat. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. As he laughed, tears flowed down his cheeks. He quietly leaned against the nation-guarding monument. As the moonlight fell on his face, Feng Jixing choked with sobs and said, You once asked me if I was afraid. I said I wasn't. Now I'm afraid. Brother Feng knows how you feel. The 4 heroes of Lanyan disappeared in the blink of an eye. I'm the only one left. I'm so scared. How can I continue on my path in the future? You. Old Chu Lei, how are you guys doing in that world? The nation-guarding monument was cold. Feng Jixing raised his head and took another sip of strong liquor. He sobbed like a child and said, If only we could go back to the days when we were drinking in the pavilion of raindrops, how good would that be? He looked up at the jungle in the distance. His eyes flashed with despair. He knew that he could never go back. After a long time, Feng Jixing stood up and poured the remaining liquor in the jar under the nation-guarding monument. With a determined look in his eyes, he said, Brothers, wait for me. On the day Feng Jixing unifies the territory of the empire, I'll accompany you to drink in the netherworld. He turned over and mounted the horse, galloping away. The next day, Feng Jixing led the 50,000 troops of Muyu City on an expedition to the east and went straight to Tianshu province. At this time, Xiang Yu was leading the troops to attack Wugu City. This was undoubtedly another head-on blow for Iha country. Once they lost the protection of Tianshu province, Wugu City would become a lonely city and lose all reliance and support. Empire Calendar Year 7731, June 27th, 10 miles north of Wugu City, Xiang Yu's army camp. Buckets of blood-red berries were transported into the camp. The berries emitted a strange fragrance, but all the soldiers in charge of escorting them had cold eyes and did not look at the berries at all. General is here. A Chiliarch dismounted and saluted respectfully. Xiang Yu carried the bloodbath spear and rode his horse into the crowd. He asked, Is everything ready? Yes, General. A military officer in a purple robe cupped his fists and said, Almost all the blood fruits in Songnan province have been picked by us. A total of 182 buckets of berries have been gathered. How toxic is it? Xiang Yu asked. The military officer smiled. 1,000-year-old elephant accidentally eats a blood fruit. It's enough to kill it. In these wooden buckets, there are at least hundreds of blood fruits in each bucket. General should be able to guess the toxicity of these nearly 200 buckets of blood fruits. Good. Xiang Yu smiled slightly and said, Pass down my order to the 3 armies. From today onwards, our drinking water can only be fetched from the dragon-seeking forest. We can no longer use water from the Rice River. As soon as it gets dark, immediately dump all the berries into the Rice River. The Rice River is the river of life for Wugu City. As long as the Rice River is poisonous, Wugu City will be defeated and destroyed. Yes. One of the captains of 7 Seas City was astonished, and he said, General, these blood fruits won't just kill the traders of the Iha nation. They'll kill the commoners of 5 Valley City as well. There are 2,400,000 people in 5 Valley City. So what? Xiang Yu said lightly. These people were originally citizens of the empire, but they pledged allegiance to the Iha nation. Death cannot wipe out their crimes. Pass down my order. There must be no mistakes. If there is any crime, I, Xiang Yu, will bear it alone. Yes. That night, 182 buckets of acute pain berries flowed down and melted into the Rice River. The rice river surrounded Wugu City and provided all the city's daily water supply. The next day, hundreds of thousands of people died in Wugu City. It was chaos. Both sides of the city road were filled with the moans and wails of the poisoned. It was unbearable to hear. A row of cavalry slowly passed. Ding Shi was wearing a general's cloak, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His eyes swept across both sides and said lightly, "It is confirmed that the water source has been poisoned, is it?" "Yes, General." The guard on the side said, "The entire rice river has been infected with poison. All the dead fish on the river surface have floated up as far as the eye can see." "Bastard." Ding Shi clenched his fist and said, "Pass down my order, no more drinking water from the rice river. Dig underground water sources to drink." "But General, the rice river is deep. The poison must have already entered the underground water. Even if we drink well water, we will still be in danger of poisoning. This," Ding Shi frowned and said, "perhaps we should consider withdrawing our troops. Immediately follow me to see the commander." "Yes." The governor's manor in Five Valley City had now become Qin Yi's governor's manor. Ding Shi entered with his sword in hand. When he entered the hall, he saw Ji Yao and LV Zhao from afar. Qin Yi was leaning against a chair with his eyes closed, his face full of fatigue. It seemed that after the northern expedition, which had almost destroyed half of the empire, Qin Yi had not enjoyed the pleasure of becoming a king. "Is it General Ding Shi?" Qin Yi asked lightly. "Yes, General." Ding Shi cupped his fists and said, "Commander, Xiang Yu poisoned the rice river. Moreover, it's a blood fruit poison. Hundreds of thousands of people have died today. This general suggests that we immediately abandon Five Valleys City and lead the army out of the city. Take the people of Five Valleys City and head south to Hundred Ridge City." LV Zhao's face turned cold. "Ding Shi, are you advising the commander to abandon the 8 northern provinces of Iha country? This general does not dare." Qin Yi slowly opened his eyes and said, "Pass down my order. Everyone starts drinking well water. Do not drink rice river water. Hold on for another 3 days. If Xiang Yu still poisons, then withdraw." "Yes. Also, what about Long Qianlin?" LV Zhao said disdainfully. "That cowardly rat has already led his troops to the Sword Pavilion. He doesn't even dare to step into Wugu City's territory. He has been scared out of his wits by the imperial dogs." Qin Yi said lightly, "Long Qianlin is not that kind of person. All right, all of you are dismissed. Prepare for the withdrawal." Yes. In the following days, a large number of people in Wugu City died. On the 4th of July, Wugu City was breached. When Xiang Yu and the imperial army entered Wugu City, they found that it was already a dead city. Excluding the hundreds of thousands who escaped from the city, the remaining 1.8 million people were all poisoned to death. The Iha country's army that could not retreat in time was ambushed by Xiang Yu's army. 30,000 people were killed and 40,000 were captured. On the 7th of July, Xiang Yu led 30,000 troops to pursue Qin Yi. They were ambushed by Long Qianlin's sword pavilion and lost more than 10,000 men. He then decided to withdraw. On the 15th of July, year 7731 of the empire's calendar, Feng Jixing defeated the Heaven's Corps and captured 40,000 men. He also captured Yuqi Tian and Yuqi Yen, recovering Divine Shadow City and Heaven's Core Province. At this point, the neighboring Earthstar Province, Songnan Province, and Heaven's Core Province were all recovered and incorporated into the Empire's territory. Apart from a small portion of the Iha country's troops that remained in Tongtian Province and Lingdong Province, the rest of them retreated to Lingnan. At this point, the empire was divided into two. On the 21st of September, year 7731 of the empire's calendar, Qin Yin was crowned empress. She was given the title empress, and the empire's name was still Qin. Chapter 318. It was September 21st, the day of the empress's coronation. On this day, there was only laughter and joy in Lanyan City. Qin Yin's proclamation as the empress was tantamount to announcing the true reconstruction of the empire. The people of Lanyan City had suffered deeply from the massacre of the Iha kingdom. This kind of pain penetrated deep into their bones and was unforgettable. compared to the hypocrisy of the Iha kingdom. The people loved this generous and benevolent empress even more. The square of Zetian was crowded with countless commoners who had come to watch the empress's coronation. The crowd crowded from Zetian Palace Hall all the way to Tongtian Street. It was extremely lively. Accompanied by the ringing of the bell, the officials divided into two groups and stood outside the main hall. The square of the main hall was filled with the newly organized imperial guards in bright armor. Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu, the two famous generals who had just been promoted to first-rank generals, stood guard outside the main hall. "Your Highness, please." Su Muyin shouted with a smile on his face. Surrounded by the officials, Qin Yin slowly walked out of the main hall. Her beautiful face was expressionless as she stood there gracefully and calmly looked at everyone in the main hall. Her hair was coiled up high and was inlaid with the empress's golden swan neck crown. It was elegant and dignified. Under the velvet shawl, she wore an exquisite blue robe that was the same color as the uniform of the empire's soldiers. Her waist was adorned with gold and silver tassels, and her perky twin peaks protruded from the front of her robe. On the front of her robe, there was a gold-bordered purple flower, which was the empire's emblem. "Xiaoxi, present the pearl of imperial power." At her command, Tang Xiaoxi, who was dressed in a beautiful red dress, held a tray in her hand, and respectfully came in front of Qin Yin. She looked up with a smile and said, "Xiao Yin, come." Qin Yin nodded with a smile, and reached out to hold the golden scepter. This was the treasure that represented the royal power, and was once held by Qin Jin. Holding the scepter in one hand and the golden and blue pearl in the other, Qin Yin's snow-white face carried a faint smile as she turned to look at the officials in the main hall, and the people of the empire in the distance. For a time, the whole Lanyan city seemed to be boiling at this moment. "Xiaoxi, come with me." Qin Yin turned to look at her best friend. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and reached out to hold Qin Yin's little hand. The two of them walked step by step towards the throne. Below the throne, an attendant was holding a golden laurel crown. This was a custom-made laurel crown for the empress. "Grandfather," Qin Yin said softly. Su Muyin hurriedly went forward and knelt on one knee. Then he lifted up the laurel crown and took off Qin Yin's original crown, putting this supreme laurel crown on her. In an instant, all the officials knelt down and shouted, "Long live Her Highness the Empress!" "You may rise." Qin Yin gently raised her hand. After all the officials stood up, she said, "All of you have helped Qin Yin recapture Lanyan City, and even recovered Sungnan Province, Tianshu Province, and Earthstar Province. 6 of the 8 provinces in Lingbei have returned to the Empire's territory. On behalf of the family, Qin Yin thanks all of you for your hard work and contributions." She bowed and made a ladylike bow. Immediately, all the officials were overwhelmed by the favor and returned the bow. Qin Yin blinked and continued according to the agreed procedure. Duke Yun of Yunzhong Province, Su Muyun, has contributed greatly to the Empire of Great Qin. He especially conferred the title of Duke Yun, which can be passed down from generation to generation. Everyone shouted, "Congratulations, Duke Yun! Congratulations, Duke Yun!" Su Muyun knelt respectfully in front of Qin Yin and said, "Your old servant thanks your highness." Qin Yin continued, "Duke Lan of Qihai Province, Tang Lan, has contributed greatly to the Empire of Great Qin. He especially conferred the title of Duke of Qihai, which can be passed down from generation to generation. In addition, Tang Jin's second son Tang Lu has been conferred the title of Marquis of Lingbei. Tang Ju's eldest son Tang Tian has been conferred the title of Marquis of Lingxi. Tang Jin's daughter, Tang Wei, has been conferred the title of Princess Wei." Everyone from the Tang family knelt down to express their gratitude. Qin Yin smiled and nodded for everyone to rise. Beside her, Tang Xiaoxi was the closest to her. She blinked and said, "2 marquises and 1 princess. Grandfather wants you to confer these titles?" "Yes." Qin Yin's voice was very soft. "The Tang family has contributed greatly to the empire's recovery. This is what they deserve." Tang Xiaoxi laughed bitterly. "Even though Tang Lu, Tang Tian, and Tang Wei are my brother and sister, they're all mediocre people. What ability do they possess to deserve such a title?" Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. "Xiaoxi, you're the best." Yes. Tang Xiaoxi looked at her faintly and said, Xiao Yin, the empire has just been stabilized. So many people have died, and so many fields have become barren. I'm afraid we'll need a few years to recuperate before we can raise the issue of war again. Yes. Also, according to Duke Yin and grandfather, I, as the princess of Qihai City, will also be going to Demon Subduing Pass. When are you leaving? Qin Yin seemed lost. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and held her hand, saying, I'll leave tomorrow, but don't worry, little Yin. As long as you need me, I can come back to Lanyan City to see you at any time. Also, Duke Yin seems to be worried about the demon clan. If I don't personally guard the Demon Subduing Pass, he's worried that the demon clan will re-enter the central region. Yes, grandfather is too paranoid. Yes, Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said. It's just that I can't stay in Lanyan City to accompany you every day. It'll be very boring for you to be the empress. Sigh. If only you was here. Qin Yin's eyes turned red, and she wanted to say something but stopped. That night, Zetian Palace held a banquet to entertain the officials. Feng Jixing, Zhang Wei, and Wei Qiu sat together, chatting casually. Meanwhile, Xiang Yu was even more glorious. The rank of commander-in-chief on his shoulder glowed with a golden radiance, complementing the proud look on his face. Congratulations to young Lord Tang Lu for being promoted to the Marquis of North Ridge. Xiang Yu cupped his fists and said to Tang Lu with a smile. Tang Lu was young and successful, so he didn't put anyone in his eyes. The corner of his mouth rose. What are you talking about? I can't compare to General Xiang Yu. My title of North Ridge Marquis is just an empty title. How can I compare to General Xiang Yu? A rice river was turned into a river of dead people by General, and Five Valleys City, one of the 7 famous cities of the empire, was turned into a dead city by General. In this world, I'm afraid no one can compare to you. Xiang Yu was stunned, and his face turned ashen. A general's success is built on the bones of tens of thousands. This is the way of the ancient times. Marquis, why do you have to ridicule me like this? Ridicule? Tang Lu couldn't help but laugh. He patted Xiang Yu's shoulder and moved closer to him. Xiang Yu, you're just a stray dog. If grandfather hadn't taken you in, would you have had the chance to accomplish anything? But you're a smart person. I think you should know what to do. Xiang Yu's face turned pale. He cupped his fists and said respectfully, Marquis's lesson is right. Xiang Yu will forever remember Duke Lan's kindness of giving me a new lease of life. If I forget, I'll definitely be stabbed by a sword. Good, that's good. Tang Lu smiled and passed by Xiang Yu in a drunken manner. He went to greet Tang Tian, who wasn't far away. One was North Ridge Marquis, and the other was West Ridge Marquis. Tang Lu and Tang Tian could be considered to have a sufficient status in the empire. In the side hall of the banquet, Qin Yin sat beside Su Muyin in silence. Xiao Yin, what's going on? Su Muyin asked with a smile. Qin Yin's gaze stopped on the fruit platter on the table. She mumbled, Grandfather, I want to rebuild the military system and turn the Longdan army camp into a regular army. I want to build an army of 30,000 men, and promote Wei Qiu to a third-rank country protector general. What does grandfather think? Expand the Longdan army camp? Su Muyin frowned. He patted Qin Yin's shoulder and said with a smile, Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Wei Qiu is still young. If you want to put him in an important position, you can let Wei Qiu come to the Iron Blade Army to be a captaincy. I believe he's competent enough. Why? Qin Yin clenched her fist and bit her red lips. Why don't I, the Empress, have the authority to build an army? Su Muyin smiled faintly. Silly child. What nonsense are you thinking about? You are indeed the Empress, but grandfather will help you with the matters of the army. Your Aunt Lian will also help you. You don't have to worry. Moreover, you're not young anymore. Grandfather doesn't have to worry about other things but your marriage. Qin Yin remained silent. Su Muyin continued. Qin Yan, that brat, is the son of Prince Ji Ning. After Prince Ji Ning and His Majesty were killed at the Fairy Lake, many of Prince Ji Ning's former subordinates had contact with Qin Yan. I think his character is not bad. Little Yin, if you don't mind, in another 2 years, when Qin Yan comes of age, Grandfather will arrange your marriage. How about that? Qinyin clenched her fists so hard that her nails were about to sink into her flesh. Tears swirled in her eyes. She shook her head lightly and said, "There's no need. Qinyin has already grown up. I will be with the person I love. Don't mention this matter again. Otherwise, Grandfather, you know my temper." Su Muyin was stunned. Okay. I know you're stubborn. If you don't want to, then forget it. Xiaoyin Tanglan is now the empress. The military power under her control is getting stronger and stronger. Haven't you thought about anything? That's between the two of you. I don't want to interfere. Qin Yin stood up and said, "I'm going to look for Xiaoxi. I won't accompany you." Looking at Qin Yin's lonely back, Su Muyin let out a long sigh. At the side, Su Yu drank a cup of grape wine and said indifferently, "Father, Xiaoyin is not your puppet monarch. What you're doing is too much." Su Muyin turned to look at his daughter. In the cold night, his gaze was like a sword. 100 miles away, compared to this banquet filled with fine wine and delicacies, the dragon-seeking forest seemed much colder. It was already autumn, and the nights were already very cold. Yet at this moment, a heavy downpour fell from the sky. Boom! The mountain suddenly collapsed, and a large section fell off. It also washed out the purple crystals that were buried under the soil and rocks. The rain washed the purple crystals very clean. After the heavy rain stopped, the clouds parted and the moon shone brightly. The light from the stars in the sky shone on the crystal. Suddenly, the eyelids of the person in the crystal seemed to move. "Do your best." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor called again and again. "Lin Ruoji, it's time to wake up. Since you've already absorbed the light from the stars, your soul should be awake. How long do you want to sleep for?" "I'm a god emperor, but I've been calling you like a midwife for a few months. How can I endure this?" All of a sudden, the soul that had been asleep for a long time woke up. His Yi was in a state of chaos. Wisps of white light condensed into Lin Muyu's body. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the chaos around him. He could not help but ask, "Where am I?" Chapter 319. Above his head was the boundless vault of heaven, and beneath his feet were the waves of 10,000 miles. It seemed like he did not need to ask to know where he was. Lin Muyu's spiritual sense was awakened in his own Yi, but his body was not truly awake. "Demon Emperor, how long have I been unconscious?" He stood majestically above his Yi and asked. The waves surged and the seawater slowly parted. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor appeared proudly. His crimson robe and handsome appearance complemented each other, which was enough to prove that the recovery of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's godhead was close to a complete state. "About 5 months. The Demon Emperor said lightly, "But you're not unconscious. You've been dead for more than 5 months. If I hadn't used my divine power to restrain your 3 souls and 7 spirits, I'm afraid your soul would have been scattered, and you would have become a real corpse by now." 5 months. Lin Muyu was stunned. He bowed to the Demon Emperor and said, "Thank you, Demon Emperor. I know that with your current cultivation, you can completely leave my body and ascend to the heaven realm." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's expression was calm as he said lightly, "Lin Muyu, you traveled through time and space to save me, the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, in the 17th level of purgatory. If I don't repay you for saving my life, I won't be able to rest easy for the next 10,000 years, even 100 million years. So this time I must save your little life." "But how?" Lin Muyu laughed bitterly. "If I remember correctly, my heart has already been crushed by Luolan." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor couldn't help but laugh. "The heart isn't an irreversible vital point. If your head was chopped off, I would indeed be powerless. But don't forget, your left arm was reconstructed from one of the 9 great sacred weapons, the Profound Spirit Ruler. The Profound Spirit Ruler is born with the ability to heal itself. As long as we gather enough sunlight, rain and dew, and absorb the spiritual energy of the earth, we can reconstruct your heart." "Really?" Lin Muyu was overjoyed. "Yes." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor nodded and smiled. "But don't celebrate too early. After all, it's rebuilding the heart. Besides, we're trapped in the Acatosaurus's dragon crystal. We can only slowly gather this spiritual energy. This process will take a long time. How long? The longest is a few hundred years, the shortest is 3 to 5 years. The 7 luminaries demon emperor chuckled and placed his hands behind his back. But don't worry, I have the body of a god emperor. Time is not a problem for me at all, because I am immortal. Not to mention a few hundred years, I can even accompany you for tens of thousands of years. But I can't afford it. Lin Muyu looked helpless. What's the situation outside? Has the Qin Empire been destroyed? Has the Iha kingdom succeeded? The 7 luminaries demon emperor narrowed his eyes. I'm trapped in this dragon crystal just like you. What you don't know, I don't know either. How am I supposed to answer your questions? Now what do we do? Lin Muyu was burning with anxiety. I must be reborn soon. Maybe Xiaoyin is fine. As long as she's not dead. She must need me now. Reborn soon. The 7 luminaries demon emperor glared at her. Do you think you can be reborn just because you say so? Like in games, you can revive on the spot with a gold coin? Be honest and do it step by step. The first step is to open your eyes and use your body to feel the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Use your eyes to accept the spiritual energy of the sun, moon, and stars. The only thing you have to do is to open your eyes. I'll help you with the rest. Yes. Lin Muyu slowly sank her spiritual sense into her body and felt the broken body. At the same time, she seemed to be able to feel Acatosaurus's energy. Yes, Acatosaurus used the dragon's life force to protect her body from damage before it died. It was loyal. For the first time, Lin Muyu felt that it was so difficult to open her eyes. Because this body was dead, she couldn't control it at all. If she wanted to open her eyes, she had to make her soul and body fit together. But it wasn't easy. After all, her soul had been away from her body for 5 months. After dozens of minutes, she sighed. She still couldn't open her eyes. Take it slow. The 7 luminaries demon emperor continued to plant spiritual roots in the sea. These spiritual roots could only be condensed by an emperor god. Only an emperor god could rely on this special method to cultivate. The 7 luminaries demon emperor smiled as he planted the spiritual roots. Lin Muyu, if you recover, what do you want to do the most? Lin Muyu was startled. She sank her spiritual sense into her Ihai and said, if the empire has been destroyed by Iha country, I will do everything possible to rebuild the empire. If the empire hasn't been destroyed, I will help Xiaoyin to destroy Iha country. Luolan killed Grandpa Lei Hong. I must avenge this. You, a heavenly king, want to challenge an ultimate god? The 7 luminaries demon emperor couldn't help but laugh. Why not? I will take my time to cultivate, Lin Muyu said lightly. The 7 luminaries demon emperor said, your body is still too weak. You don't have the physique to fully use the 7 luminaries' profound energy. Otherwise, if you and Luolan had the same level of divine power, a 7 luminaries star transformation would be enough to doom him. Oh right, I forgot. Your stupid body can't even contain the power of the stars, let alone cultivate the 7 luminaries star transformation. Demon Emperor, is the 7 luminaries star transformation really that strong? Lin Muyu asked. The 7 luminaries demon emperor laughed. Are you kidding me? The 7 luminaries is the essence of the 7 luminaries' profound energy. It is also this emperor's proudest self-created martial art. Then do I have the chance to master the 7 luminaries star transformation? That depends on you. When you open your eyes and look up at the stars, maybe your body will be able to absorb a little of the power of the stars. Maybe everything is unknown. Demon Emperor, when are you going to ascend? Lin Muyu asked. The 7 luminaries demon emperor was startled. He stood in the spiritual field in his Ihai and looked up at the sky. He sighed and said, actually, I won't hide it from you. My divine spark is already complete, and I can ascend at any time. However, I will definitely do what I promised you. After your body is reconstructed, I will ascend. You will fight in your empire's mainland, and I will fight in my celestial realm Star Sea. We don't owe each other anything. Lin Muyu nodded heavily. Amen. Thank you. In the night, faint fluorescent light danced around the purple crystal. The figure inside the crystal was slightly blurry, but one could already faintly see that the figure was surrounded by beams of profound light, like a shooting star in the dark night. After a whole month, finally, under Lin Muyu's perseverance, there was a slight movement in her body. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she suddenly opened her eyes under the starry sky. He was extremely excited to have regained his light. His body happened to be lying on his back facing the starry sky. The feeling of the beams of starlight sprinkling on his body was indescribably comfortable. Although his body was trapped by the dragon crystal and could not move, he could already feel the power flowing through his meridians. However, the speed of the flow was very slow because the blood vessels in his body had not started to flow yet. His heart was broken. Without the beating of his heart, how could his blood flow? Not bad. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor laughed in the sea. The first step has been completed. Feel the power of the stars. The stars in the universe contain power that is stronger than heaven and earth. This can quickly heal your body. Also, don't forget the blessing of wind, frost, rain and dew. Amen. Lin Muyu opened her eyes wide and looked at the sky. At the same time, streams of cool dew seeped down from the dragon crystal and sprinkled on her body that had been trapped for a long time. It was as if rain and dew were nourishing a barren field. Very soon, Lin Muyu felt a sensation on her skin. She had already recovered part of her 5 senses. A thin wind passed through the holes in the dragon crystal and slowly moistened her body. At the same time, along with the wind and dew, the spiritual power of heaven and earth also slowly watered Lin Muyu's body that had been dead for a long time. Just as the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor had said. This process was very slow. At this moment there was a pung sound. It was as if a golden lock in her mind had been opened. Immediately after, golden words slowly entered her mind. In an instant, Lin Muyu's spiritual sense was about to die from exhaustion. She quickly absorbed the power of these words, and her mind instantly felt as if it was about to crash. At this moment, the long-lost Lulu appeared. Her transparent body flew out of Lin Muyu's mind with a whoosh, and floated in the dragon crystal. She quickly hugged Lin Muyu's neck and intimately rubbed her face against his neck. She smiled and said, "Big brother didn't die. This is great. Big brother didn't die. This is really great." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Her spiritual sense said, "Lulu, you're still here?" "That's right." Lulu flapped her wings and said with a smile, "Lulu has always been here. It's just that Big Brother couldn't sense Lulu when he was asleep. Congratulations, Big Brother. You've unlocked the 12 styles of the Dragon Taming Spear Technique." The Dragon Taming Spear Technique. Lin Muyu smiled and remembered. This Dragon Taming Spear Technique was a skill he was proud of in the game Conquer. However, the unlocking process now was the detailed explanation of the 12 styles of the Dragon Taming Spear Technique appearing in his mind. Those golden words were all imprinted in his mind. It wasn't really unlocking it, but for him to learn and comprehend it. Once again, Lin Muyu was stunned by this mysterious power. The Dragon Taming Spear Technique had a total of 12 styles. They were Seeking the Way form, Hongchuan form, Dashing form, Lin Yuan form, Mountain Shaker form, Thunderclap form, Scales Caressing form, Spear Lock form, Break form, Tail Swing form, No Attack form, and Dragon Capture form. Each style was stronger than the previous. In the game, it was just a skill that could be easily learned. However, in this world, each style had more than 1,000 words of detailed explanation, so it wasn't that easy to learn. However, in this continent of Shattered Cauldron realm, most generals use long weapons such as halberds, spears, and knives to charge and break through enemy lines. As long as Lin Muyu learned the Dragon Taming Spear Technique, he would definitely be unparalleled in the world. In the depths of Ehai, it seemed like the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor had also sensed the abnormal power invading Lin Muyu's mind. Somewhat speechless, he said, "What the hell is this? Do you have secret martial arts manuals in your mind?" "I don't know either." Lin Muyu had nothing to hide from the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. She said, "Ever since I transmigrated to this world, These skills have been unlocked one by one. As for why, I don't know. Is that so? Let me take a look. The godhead of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor suddenly became active and seeped into Lin Muyu's mind. In a short moment it returned to Ihai. With a cold expression it said, "Kid, you're injured." I'm injured? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill. Yes. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's gaze was solemn. "I found a piece of metal in your mind." Piece of metal. Lin Muyu was silent for a moment. Her eyes shone brightly. "I finally understand why I can comprehend skills one by one. It's because someone implanted a chip in my body. It's been like this since the beginning. Isn't that right, Lulu?" Lulu pursed her small lips. "I don't know. I'm just a string of data. But speaking of which, Lulu's origin seems to be the chip in Brother's mind. That explains it." Lin Muyu thought for a moment and decided not to think about it anymore. It was just who implanted the chip in her mind. But right now this chip was definitely helping her. Only by cultivating properly and changing her fate would she be able to find the truth. Chapter 320. Spring passed and winter came. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the first month of the 7734 year of the empire, Tang Lan and Su Muyin led 400,000 troops to cross the mountains and attack Lingang province. They were defeated by Long Qianlin, one of the 7 marshals of Lingnan, using a delaying tactic. A heavy snowstorm caused the imperial army to lose all supplies and suffer a large-scale attack from the Iha kingdom. They lost more than 200,000 men. Lingdong province and Tongtian province were seized by the Iha kingdom. Corpses littered the Qinling mountains for thousands of miles. This was the empire's first crushing defeat since its reconstruction. Even Xiang Yu and the other generals were injured. In the 3rd month, the army returned to the imperial capital. In the Zetian Hall, Qin Yin's beautiful face had lost some of its tenderness after the baptism of wind and frost, but it now had a mature charm. She pressed her hand on the hilt of the Ziyin sword and stood majestically in front of the throne. She looked coldly at the people in the hall and said, "Grandfather, Your Highness the 7 Seas King, give me a reason why we lost this time." Tang Lan and Su Muyin knelt before the palace in silence. Feng Jixing stood at the side with his hand on the hilt of his sword. He suddenly walked out and cupped his fists. "Your Highness, we didn't lose this battle. Our every move was under the enemy's control. Most of our supplies were intercepted and burned. That's why the 400,000 troops lost their supplies on the Qinling Mountains. Moreover, they were delayed for too long and didn't have enough clothes. The heavy snowstorm completely lost the empire's combat power." "What's going on?" Qin Yin asked. Feng Jixing said, "In these 3 years, Lingnan has once again built close to 100 new House of Chivalry in the northern mountain ridge. We have tried many times to encircle and annihilate them but to no avail. They are hidden deep in the mountains and are too cunning. Furthermore, those chivalrous rangers have been constantly reporting our military intelligence to the Iha kingdom. This is also the biggest reason for our defeat." Qin Yin heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Xiang Yu, send troops to guard the borders of Tianshu province and Sungnan province. Don't let the Iha kingdom attack again. Commander Feng, you're in charge of destroying the House of Chivalry. I don't want the House of Chivalry to exist within the borders of the empire within half a year." "Your Highness, this. What, is there a problem?" "Yes." Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, "Does your Highness know of the 7 Saint Realm experts of the Iha country? Hanjun Luzhan, Fan Yun, Duan Mufang, Xiaohozhu, Yin Li and Buhai are all disciples of Luolan. Now 3 of them have entered the northern mountain ridge. They are hiding in the House of Chivalry in the forest. This is the reason why we have failed to conquer the House of Chivalry. Are we just going to let them continue like this?" Qin Yin's eyes were filled with determination. She said, "Wei Chou, bring the Longdan army camp to assist General Feng. You must uproot the House of Chivalry in Lingbei province and Sungnan province." "Yes, Your Highness." Wei Chou cupped his fists and said. Beside him, Qin Yan, Luoyu, and Feng Shi also looked eager. The Longdan army camp had not made a move for a long time. This was an opportunity. As for killing a Saint Realm expert, it was not too difficult. After all, Lin Muyu had left behind 100,000 white diamond arrows, which were the trump card of the Longdan army camp. Your Highness! Su Muyin cupped his fists and said with a cold expression, in the Battle of Linkong Province, the Empire lost many soldiers and generals. It is all my fault. I ask for punishment, and I am willing to strip the title of King of Yunzhong. It is rare for grandfather to be so righteous. Qin Yin smiled and said, approved. Men, strip Su Muyin of his title of King of Yunzhong, and restore his title of Duke of Muyin to show that there is a clear distinction between punishment and reward. Grandfather, you don't have to take it to heart. Victory and defeat are common in war. We just have to win it back next time. We have the Seven Seas Province, Cloud Province, Lingbei Province, Songnan Province and Tianshu Province, a total of 5 rich and fertile lands. Iha country will not be able to hold on for long. Yes, your Highness is wise. Su Muyin knelt on the ground again. At the side, Tang Lan frowned and finally knelt down slowly. He said, Your Highness, since Duke Yun has resigned from his title of king, Tang Lan should also resign from his title of duke and restore his title of Duke Lan. Approved. Qin Yin was very happy. In the afternoon, 5,000 imperial guards left the city under the leadership of Feng Jixing, followed by 1,000 elites from the Longdan army camp. Due to Tang Lan and Su Muyun's repeated obstructions, the Longdan army camp was unable to expand to more than 1,000 men. Fortunately, Wei Chou led the troops well. These 1,000 men were all elites, skilled in archery and horsemanship. Their combat strength was far superior to any army of the same size within the empire. Commander Wei Chou. Feng Jixing held the reins and said, Which mountain do you think we should attack first? Dragon Rocky Mountain. Wei Chou's expression was not very good. He said, Those bastards from the Hall of Chivalry reoccupied Dragon Rocky Mountain a year ago. This is a disgrace to our Longdan army camp. I have long wanted to attack Dragon Rocky Mountain. All right then. The corner of Feng Jixing's mouth rose. He said, However, Dragon Rocky Mountain is currently guarded by the headquarters of the Hall of Chivalry in Lanyan City. It is said that there is a Saint Realm expert living on the mountain called Buhai. Half a year ago, when Xiang Yu went to attack Dragon Rocky Mountain, he was rebuffed and almost lost his life there. Even Xiang Yu was not a match for Buhai. Wei Chou couldn't help but be speechless. That's not it. Feng Jixing's eyes turned cold. He said, Xiang Yu had already stepped into the Saint Realm a year ago. In terms of strength, he should be on par with Buhai. It was just that he received a secret order from Duke Lan to withdraw his troops and return to Lanyan City. Humph. Wei Chou said coldly, presumably Tang Lan doesn't want Buhai to die. That's not necessarily true. Feng Jixing placed his hand on the hilt of his saber. With a warm spring breeze on his face, he said, I guess Tang Lan is worried that Xiang Yu, a valiant general, will be killed, so he is waiting for other imperial troops to attack Dragon Rocky Mountain. You should also understand that among all the major legions in the empire, only the Imperial Guards and the Longdan army camp are directly under the command of the Empress. Wei Chou smiled meaningfully. Unfortunately, the Longdan army camp is limited to less than 1,000 people, and the Imperial Guards are limited to less than 20,000 people. Otherwise, don't think so much. Feng Jixing tightened the belt of his cloak and said, Let's take one step at a time. As long as we are here, no one will dare to touch Her Highness. That is enough. Yes. Wei Chou's eyes flickered with light as he muttered, It's a pity. Commander is no longer around. Otherwise, he would also be someone who could make decisions. At the very least, he would not let Her Highness suffer so much humiliation. Feng Jixing raised his head to look at the clear sky and said unhurriedly, That fellow Yu is indeed a rare talent for a general, but it's a pity. Let's not talk about it anymore. Tonight we will station our troops at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain and attack it tomorrow. In Lanyan City, in the spiritual medicine department, birds were chirping and flowers were fragrant. Butterflies were fluttering in the air. Chu Yao slowly opened one of her hands and slowly extracted the essence of the herbs. Her beautiful eyes were very calm. Beside her, The pear-blossom sword was swaying slowly in the air as if accompanying its mistress. Great Deacon, you are still refining the medicine yourself. An old man dressed in a deacon's attire laughed. Yes. Chu Yao nodded lightly and said, if I let myself calm down, I really don't know what to do. So, when I have nothing to do, I will refine more medicine. Deacon Li, is there anything I can help you with? Yes. Deacon Li cupped his hands and said, the Divine Temple needs a few bottles of anti-aging medicine. However, this anti-aging medicine is a level 8 formula. We old fellows are helpless, so we can only trouble Great Deacon to personally refine the medicine. I see. Chu Yao blinked and asked, is the Divine Temple's Great Deacon Guiyang sick again? Yes. Deacon Li said respectfully. After Great Deacon Guiyang regained control of the Divine Temple, his health has not improved. You also know that Great Deacon Guiyang has not stepped into the sanctuary realm, so time is taking away his life. He is already more than 90 years old, so I'm afraid he will not be able to reach the sanctuary realm in his lifetime. He can only rely on anti-aging medicine to maintain his life force. I understand. Chu Yao pursed her red lips and said, the level 8 formula needs some time to be refined. Come back to collect it at dusk. Yes. Deacon Li looked to the side and saw a black pearl hanging on the bracket of Chu Yao's desk, swaying gently. This was what Qin Ying got from Lin Muyu and passed to Chu Yao. Great Deacon, this pearl. Who are the people carved on it? He suddenly asked. Chu Yao was stunned. Her graceful body stood there for a long time. After a long silence, she murmured, They are the people I yearn for day and night. They are the people I only see in my dreams. Deacon Li was taken aback. He cupped his fists respectfully and bowed to Ling Longzhu. Lord Chu Huaying and Lord Lin Muyu's spirits in heaven will definitely bless the empire's prosperity. Great Deacon, please don't be too sad. Oh right, about the marriage proposal from Marquis Lingbei a few days ago. Chu Yao said indifferently, don't bother me with such matters. I will not marry anyone. Yes. The Divine Temple, the temple in the hearts of the empire's warriors, had been rebuilt. However, the black ashes on the walls had not been completely cleaned up. It was as if to remind the world of the humiliation and hatred. In the Great Deacon's office, Guiyang's silver-haired hand was holding a pen shakily. He was replying page by page on the file. A young Silver Star instructor said with a smile, Great Deacon, your hand holding the pen is trembling more and more. Guiyang glanced at him and said, You are so meddlesome. I know. He suddenly put down the pen and leaned back in the chair. He said with a smile, I'm old. This should have been done by the younger generation. Unfortunately, the talents in the holy sanctum of the empire have withered. Many geniuses lost their precious lives in the chaos of Lanyan City 3 years ago. Alas, the young instructor smiled. Great Deacon, are you talking about Deacon Lin Muyu? Although I have not seen him before, everyone in the Divine Temple remembers him. He is the youngest person in the empire to have the strength of a heavenly king. Not only the strength of a heavenly king. Guiyang's eyes flickered with a faint light. He said, If you did not die, with his speed of advancement, I am afraid he would have already stepped into the holy region. Great Deacon's resignation request to His Highness was rejected. His Highness said that the Longdan army camp also needs people. No matter what, Qin Yan cannot return to the Divine Temple as the Great Deacon. Yes, they all need people. Guiyang heaved a long sigh and picked up his brush once again. Chapter 321. In the middle of the night, the starlight transformed into beams of beautiful light that shot deep into the mountains. The huge purple crystal had been completely washed out by the torrential rain, and was exposed to the starlight. The young man in the crystal looked at the starry sky like lightning. His whole body surged with fighting energy, and the starlight slowly seeped into his body like flowing water. It's finally done, the stars have entered my body. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor cheered in the ocean of mind, as if Lin Muyu's success in obtaining the power of the stars was equivalent to him cultivating a peerless martial art. Phew, Lin Muyu exhaled slowly. The wound on her chest had slowly healed after 3 years of cultivation. Just as the demon emperor had said, the profound spirit ruler in her left arm had the world's most mysterious healing power, and had the ability to bring the dead back to life. Moreover, at this moment, Lin Muyu felt that her body was overflowing with the power of the stars. In the ocean of mind, another voice sounded. Brother, I feel terrible. It was Lulu. What's wrong, Lulu? Lin Muyu asked in shock. Lulu wailed in pain, and her graceful body appeared in the ocean of mind. She hugged her head and moaned. When she raised her head, her face was pale and she said, Brother, be careful, something is going to rush out of my head. Rush out of your head? Lin Muyu looked confused. Lulu, don't scare me. However, at this moment, there was a sudden bang. In Lin Muyu's mind, another huge golden lock was unlocked. Some obscure golden characters turned into stars and fell into the ocean of mind, as if a meteor storm had fallen in the ocean of mind. The 7 luminaries' demon emperor was shocked and hurriedly turned to dodge. At the same time he shouted, What is it? After about half a minute, the meteor storm finally stopped. Lin Muyu was sweating profusely as she lay in the crystal. Her face was flushed and she said, Is it the star technique? Yes. Lulu gasped for air with her mouth wide open. When I deleted the constellation arts, I didn't delete it completely, and the data was left in my cache. Brother, did you see the constellation arts? Yes. Lin Muyu was ecstatic. The astral arts was the ultimate skill in the game Conquer. There were a total of 9 levels, and she was unrivaled in the world of Conquer, with the help of the astral arts. Now that she had actually obtained the martial arts secret manual of the astral arts in the real world of the Shattered Cauldron realm, this was simply a great fortune bestowed by the heavens. The golden words shuttled back and forth in her mind. Lin Muyu's martial arts foundation was already very deep, so naturally, she could easily understand these secret manuals. The first level of the astral arts, astral integration. Now that he had completed it, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The fighting energy flowing in his body began to revolve rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a deep blue star energy floating in the palm of his hand. It was the first move of the star formula, Initial Starlight. Lulu smiled and said, Congratulations on regaining the star art, big brother. Yes. Lin Muyu slowly dispersed the star energy in the palm of his hand, only to feel that the qi gene in her body had never been stronger before. However, when she tried to comprehend the second level of the astral arts, she encountered some obstruction. The martial arts manual stated that one must cultivate the star energy in the sea of mind, but with Lin Muyu's current attainments, it was clear that she was unable to do so. After trying for a while, she could only give up. The most important thing now was to break this purple crystal before her, otherwise it wouldn't be considered a true resurrection. At this time, Lin Muyu also realized that the chatterbox of the 7 luminaries demon emperor had actually been silent for a long time. She couldn't help but ask, Demon Emperor, what's wrong? Why aren't you saying a word? The 7 luminaries demon emperor was silent for a while, then said, Weak chicken, where did you get this astral arts from? It came with the game. How is this possible? The 7 luminaries demon emperor roared angrily in the sea of mind, actually causing waves that were tens of thousands of feet high. He stood in the sky, looking disdainfully at the sky, and said, I, the 7 luminaries demon emperor, exhausted my entire life to research this unparalleled secret art, the 7 luminaries profound energy. You brat. How could you comprehend such an unparalleled secret art like the astral arts? The astral arts is stronger than the 7 luminaries' profound energy? Lin Muyu asked. Yes, the 7 luminaries demon emperor was a magnanimous person. He nodded and said, Not only is it stronger than the 7 luminaries' profound energy in terms of strength, but it refines the power of the stars in the universe to cultivate martial arts, so there is almost no backlash to the body. Tell me the truth. Who researched and created this astral arts? This, I really don't know how about. Lin Muyu pondered, then said, The martial arts of the astral arts are in my mind, Demon Emperor. You also live in my Ehai. You can take it and cultivate at any time, I don't mind. The 7 luminaries demon emperor laughed. There's no need for that. Just because you are so honest, I can't secretly learn your unique secret art. Moreover, I, the 7 luminaries demon emperor, never believe in heresy. Don't worry, I have all the time in the world to improve and strengthen the 7 luminaries' profound energy. I definitely won't lose to your astral arts. Weak chicken, do you feel the increase in strength? Yes, why? Because you have broken through and stepped into the 3rd heaven of the heaven realm. I see. Lin Muyu looked around and said, it's a pity that there is no strong spiritual beast to provide spiritual energy for me to advance. I don't know if the Green Gourd will be able to obtain the ability of the martial spirit if I miss this opportunity. Who said there is no spiritual beast? Look at the sky. Ah. Lin Muyu looked up and saw a golden light slowly swimming down from the sky. It was a 3-clawed golden dragon, its scales glowing with a faint golden light. This is a real dragon. A real dragon? How can it? Lin Muyu was shocked. The 7 Brilliance Demon Monarch let out a hollow laugh. The Crimson Crystal Dragon's crystal is surrounded by the corpse of a giant python. If I'm not mistaken, it should be a giant python that has turned into a dragon. It has been a dragon for 10 years. So the true dragon that has turned into a dragon has returned to the corpse to absorb the remaining dragon force. It's quite a fortunate encounter. Let's find a way to kill the true dragon. Slay a dragon? Lin Muyu was stunned. That is a real dragon. Don't be afraid, you are such a coward. The 7 Brilliance Demon Monarch burst out laughing. It's only a cub of the dragon tribe. Its strength is at most equivalent to a spiritual beast that's around 12,000 years old. Besides, I already have a complete god horoscope, which allows me to materialize a physical attack. Do you really think you're going to lose to a real dragon with me around? More importantly, this real dragon can provide dragon energy to resurrect the Acatosaurus that has been dead for 5 years. Lin Muyu nodded. She could feel that the soul of the Acatosaurus did not dissipate. Instead it was entrenched in a ball, lying on her chest, looking up and howling at her, as if the dragon's soul still had the consciousness of the young dragon. At that moment, Lin Muyu had mixed feelings. The Acatosaurus's dependence and loyalty was really rare. Roar! The 3-clawed golden dragon suddenly swooped down, looking at the purple crystal with hostility. It immediately opened its mouth and bit the purple crystal, but the dragon scale crystal of the Acatosaurus was too hard. It was not damaged at all. Instantly, the 3-clawed golden dragon was enraged, opened its mouth and a ball of fire dragon breath. Voila! The high-temperature dragon breath burned the purple crystal, instantly causing the soul of the Acatosaurus to let out a cry. Now, break the dragon crystal. The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor shouted. Use the first form of your astral arts. Okay. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. Starlight once again appeared in her palm. A deep blue star suddenly exploded in the purple crystal. Bang! The entire purple crystal let out an explosive sound and cracks appeared on it. Damn! The Demon Emperor was shocked. No, if this continues, your body will be shattered by the astral arts before the purple crystal is broken. Can you use the 7 glorious stars transformation? Let me try. Lin Muyu gritted his teeth and gathered all of his do qi. Immediately, the 7 luminaries' profound force circulated around his body. The profound force slowly turned into stars and appeared in his palm. He opened his palm lightly and instantly, dozens of stars turned into impact energy and blasted out. Bang! The dragon crystal exploded, releasing a golden light that shot into the sky. The golden gourd surrounded Lin Muyu, making him look like a god even though his armor was tattered. The 7 glorious stars transformation was indeed frighteningly powerful. Furthermore, it was an AoE attack. It was hard to imagine how much explosive power it would have if it was used in a chaotic battle. However, it was just a thought. The damage caused by the 7 glorious stars transformation could not be ignored. At this moment, Lin Muyu's newly reborn body was filled with pain, as if every inch of her skin was about to explode. Roar! The 3-clawed golden dragon roared and charged towards Lin Muyu. It opened its mouth wide and looked like it was going to swallow this powerful young man in one bite. However, it did not have the chance to do so. Suddenly, a golden figure rushed out of Lin Muyu's eye. It was the 7 luminaries demon emperor with a complete divine spark. Evil creature! How dare you be so arrogant? The 7 brilliance demon monarch let out a roar and opened his hand. It immediately turned into a giant palm and grabbed the 3-clawed golden dragon's neck with brute force. He waved his left hand and unleashed the 7 luminaries' mystical force. Wisps of blood-red beastly force surged as the 7 brilliance demon monarch burst out laughing. Die! Triluminaries' demonic dance. Bang! The palm fell, and the 3-clawed golden dragon's head was instantly smashed, golden blood flowed, and it was dead. Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Was this the power of a god emperor? F***ck, it was too exaggerated. A real dragon did not even have the power to resist in his hands. And the Triluminary's demonic dance was more than 10 times stronger than her when used by the real master, the 7 luminaries demon emperor. As if seeing through Lin Muyu's thoughts, the 7 luminaries demon emperor slowly threw the 3-clawed golden dragon's soft corpse to the side, rubbed his hands and laughed. Perhaps humans treat dragons as one of the strongest creatures, but to put it bluntly, I may offend the descendants of Yan and Huang, but in the endless divine realm, the role of the dragon clan is similar to the Huskies, Samoyeds, and Alaskans you raise. Lin Muyu said, that's the legendary 3-sled fools, don't underestimate them. Still stupid? Refine the dragon's soul immediately. Yes. Chapter 322. Although the 3-clawed golden dragon's beast soul was only at the level of a 2,000-year-old spiritual beast, it was still a dragon's soul. It was not easy to refine it completely. Fortunately, Lin Muyu had the treasure-refining cauldron, and with the help of the heavenly fire, she finally managed to refine the dragon's soul after 4 hours. At the same time, the Acatosaurus's dragon soul slowly condensed and turned into a small dragon. It returned to its original appearance, but it continued to chew on everything. Not only did it finish the huge purple crystal, it also pounced on the 3-clawed golden dragon's corpse. It even swallowed the precious 3-clawed golden dragon's spirit stone. Awoo! It raised its head and howled again. It had evolved. Not long after, 5 golden lines appeared on the small dragon's head. It had actually grown into a 5,000-year-old spiritual beast. As expected, it was from the Holy Dragon clan. After devouring the body of a true dragon, its growth speed was far faster than devouring normal spiritual beasts. As Lin Muyu refined the last of the dragon's soul, she smiled and asked, "Little fellow, what abilities do you have now?" The red crystal dragon proudly strode into the distance. Suddenly, it raised its head and let out a loud dragon roar towards the sky. Wung wung. The dragon's roar turned into a piercingly cold sound wave storm that swept out in all directions. Boom! The 3-clawed golden dragon's corpse before it had fully transformed was instantly smashed into pieces. At the same time, the surrounding forest and grass were all razed to the ground. The 7 luminaries demon emperor opened his hand and formed a divine energy domain to protect himself and Lin Muyu from the impact of the dragon's roar. Lin Muyu glared at it and said, "Idiot! Aren't you afraid of hurting me?" Xiaolong immediately ran back and rubbed his big head against Lin Muyu's leg. Naturally, Lin Muyu couldn't get angry. At this time, he had finally refined the essence of the 3-clawed golden dragon's soul. He suddenly inhaled deeply, and the golden gourd around him emitted a blinding light. It had finally evolved into a grade 8 martial spirit. The golden color of the gourd slowly turned into a purple golden gourd. And at the same time, it gained a new ability, absorption. That's right, it could absorb the opponent's strength. As for how powerful it was, it would only be known in future battles. Lin Muyu slowly let out a sigh of relief. Not long after, the dou qi in her body slowly calmed down. This time, it could be said that her cultivation had increased greatly. Lin Muyu raised her hand and pulled out the dragon soul sword. With a forceful swing, a schwa sound cut through the air. At the same time, a few elf-like milky white dou qi spirits surrounded the blade. This was the unique ability of a third firmament of the heavenly realm, condensing dou qi. After the dou qi spirits were added, The power of this sword increased by at least 50%. This was the increase that Lin Muyu could feel. Moreover, Third Heaven Realm experts had a very pleasant title according to the cultivation levels of the continent, Celestial Emperor. It sounded very impressive, but it was not worth mentioning compared to the Celestial Emperor, the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor. Alright, it's time for me to go. The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor took a deep breath, and divine power circulated around his body. He silently looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Weak chicken, I'm about to ascend to the myriad of heavenly realms. I don't know when I'll come back. You'll have to rely on yourself in the future. Don't die. Wait for me to come back and see how strong you've become." Lin Muyu nodded, and said with some sadness, "Then take care of yourself in the future, Demon Emperor." "You're still calling me Demon Emperor?" The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor turned around and smiled. "Can't you be a little more emotional, like those little bitches? Big brother." Lin Muyu muttered. The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor's body trembled slightly, and he gritted his teeth. He walked forward and patted Lin Muyu's shoulder lightly, saying, "Good kid, I originally wanted to help you kill Luolan and Lingnan before ascending, but this is your destiny. It doesn't seem right for me to complete it. This goes against the laws of heaven and earth. I'm leaving. Take care of yourself." The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor looked up at the sky, and with a shrill cry, a golden light shot into the sky, breaking a huge hole in the sky. Blood-red ancient text surrounded the hole, and turned into a pillar of light that poured down. Was that the path to the heavenly realm? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel envious, but also a little reluctant. "Alright, I'm leaving." The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor leaped, and his whole body flew into the sky, and soon turned into a small figure. Lin Muyu sighed. Those who should go must go. She and the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor met and fought against each other, and both wanted to kill each other, but who would have thought that they would become brothers who would go through life and death together in the end? But at this moment, suddenly, the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor's cry came from behind again. He turned around, and the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor appeared on the bare ground, and said with a smile, "Oh right, there's one more thing I almost forgot." "Oh, what is it?" The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor laughed, and pointed at the forest in the distance, saying, "Shouldn't you be cutting down this forest because it's blocking your view of Big Brother?" His words instantly made Lin Muyu lose the feeling of parting, and she only shook her head. "You still don't know how to speak. Big Brother, what is it?" "I'll give you a good treasure." The 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor raised his hand and gently grabbed at the void. Instantly, a section of a charred broken sword appeared in his palm. This thing, although it doesn't look very impressive, if you can refine it with the treasure refining cauldron, and integrate it into your bloodline, it will become a peerless treasure, and you will definitely go crazy with joy. "Oh." Lin Muyu took the broken sword and said, "Is it that magical?" "Of course. When have I ever lied to you? Alright, I'm leaving. Take care of yourself, and don't get killed by others. If I'm not here, no one will be able to resurrect you. Okay." This time, the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor really left. He leaped into the void, and stepped into a spatial crack. In the next moment, he appeared in another spatial crack high in the sky, and with a turn of his body, he disappeared into the gate of heaven. Not long after, the gate of heaven closed. Lin Muyu looked up at everything in the sky, and couldn't help but sigh. Fate had always been like this. It was all about karma. When the Demon Emperor relied on his own body to cultivate the rebirth godhood, it was called karma. When the Demon Emperor cultivated the godhood and stepped into the myriad god realm again, it was called karma. There was no need to force anything, and he just had to walk the path in the future. Looking at his tattered body, he couldn't help but sigh. All of the Sanctum's armor had been destroyed by Luolan, and he was now like a beggar. Lin Muyu took out his cosmos sack and rummaged through it, but he could only find diamond coins, white diamond crystals, pear blossom spear, and so on. The Sanctum's armor storage had already been used up. Forget it, he would think about it after returning to the Sanctum. Perhaps if the Sanctum was still around. At this moment he suddenly missed Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao. Were they still alive? How was the Qin Empire now? It had been 3 years. He had to know what had happened in these 3 years. He gathered his douqi, and with a leap, he used falling star steps and disappeared into the forest. Looking up at the stars in the sky, he identified the direction and headed south. Lanyan City was to the south of the dragon-seeking forest, so he couldn't go wrong. After galloping until midnight, he was so tired that he was drenched in sweat. Finally, he got out of the dragon-seeking forest, and in front of him was an ordinary forest. There were no spiritual beasts that were too old in this forest, only some wild boars, badgers, wolves, and other animals. Therefore, there were many hunters and farmers scattered in the mountains. Not long ago, he saw a trace of light, coming from a small house in the distance. At this time, Lin Muyu was cold and hungry, so he couldn't care less. He walked straight into the small courtyard and knocked on the wooden door. Dong dong dong. Dong dong dong. After a few knocks, a ray of light came from the small courtyard, and an old voice asked, "Who is it?" Lin Muyu said respectfully outside the door, "Uncle, I am a passerby. I encountered a wild beast and lost my luggage, so I want to stay here for a night and eat something hot. I will leave early tomorrow morning." Creak. The door opened and the old man, who was about 60 years old, raised the oil lamp high and shone it on Lin Muyu's face. Seeing that he didn't look like a bad person, he said with a smile, "Young man, it's too dangerous for you to walk around in the forest alone in the middle of the night. Come in quickly." "Thank you, uncle." "Old woman, get up. Cook vegetable soup for this young man, steam 2 steamed buns, and find a set of my son's clothes." Not long after, Lin Muyu changed into a set of hunter's clothes. The old man looked at him with a smile and said, "This is my son's clothes. He went to Lanyan City to be a soldier 2 years ago, and hasn't been back for a long time. You can wear this set of clothes. It's good that you don't think it's shabby." "He went to Lanyan City to be a soldier?" Lin Muyu pursed his lips, put down the soup bowl, and said, "Uncle, which army does he belong to in Lanyan City?" "The Imperial Army. 2 years ago, when the Imperial Army recruited new soldiers, he joined." "The Imperial Army?" Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat. "Who's the commander of the Imperial Army? I think it's someone called Feng. Feng something." "Feng Jixing? Yes. Young man, do you know General Feng Jixing?" "Of course I do." Lin Muyu was very excited. "Uncle, so the empire has recovered. What about Iha Nation? You haven't been in the mountains all this time, right?" The old man looked at him in surprise and said, "Those dogs from Iha Nation were naturally driven to Lingnan." "Humph, those beasts." Lin Muyu widened his eyes and asked again, "The empire? Who's the emperor now?" "There are no more emperors," the old man said faintly. "What?" Lin Muyu felt a pain in his chest and asked, "Why are there no more emperors?" "Because there's only the empress now and no emperor. Ever since Her Highness Qin Yin ascended the throne, there has been no more emperors. So that's how it is." Lin Muyu was almost scared to death and asked again, "Uncle, do you know Princess Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao? Also, do you know the situation in the Longden army camp?" The old man was confused by the questions and replied, "I'm just a hunter. I really don't know anything about these princesses and the army." "Oh, I see. Thank you, uncle. Eat more and sleep early. Look at you, you must be exhausted." "Yes." Chapter 323. Under the moonlit night, the Imperial Army camp at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain. Feng Jixing was sleeping with his clothes on. His saber was placed at the side. Outside the tent, more than 10 Imperial guards were observing the surroundings with stern gazes. They were on high alert. Rustle. The night wind blew the purple Yinhua Empire's war flag. The sound of the fluttering seemed to cover up the voice of the person in the wind. "Be careful." It was unknown who shouted, but the voice was abruptly cut off halfway. It was as if someone had snapped the person's throat. In the next moment, a formless aura descended. The group of Imperial Army soldiers guarding the commander's tent were unable to move. There were even a few with lower cultivation who died with blood flowing out of their mouths and noses. This was the power of a domain. Amidst the wind, an old figure spun around. The light of the flames killed more than 10 Imperial Army soldiers. He stepped into the commander's tent and raised his palm. A wave of energy rushed out. Feng Jixing, who was lying on the bed, opened his eyes. He jumped up and grabbed the wind cutter saber. While in the air, he swept the saber out and shouted, "Hot sand shattering gold!" The golden quicksand energy appeared on the wind slasher blade. Do Ling lingered around the blade. Feng Jixing had already stepped into the third level of the heaven realm. The wind slasher blade rapidly struck the old man's palm. There was actually a dang sound. The palm was as hard as steel. Even the wind slasher blade couldn't cut through it. Formless energy rippled out, and Feng Jixing was forced to retreat several steps. He left the camp and looked at Buhai under the moonlight. He sneered. "Buhai, I knew you would come." Buhai walked out of the tent step by step. There were several scars on his face, making him look quite sinister. He laughed loudly and said, "Feng Jixing is indeed Feng Jixing. Unfortunately, no matter how strong you are, you can't reverse the fate of the Empire's defeat. Accept the judgment of heaven." He abruptly raised both his arms, and the power of his martial spirit surged. His martial spirit was a flame wolf, and was somewhat similar to Feng Jixing's violet electric flame wolf, just that it was much stronger. The power of a 9th-layer flame wolf was much stronger than an 8th-layer violet electric flame wolf. Feng Jixing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He gripped the hilt of his saber tightly and chuckled. Again. As a heavenly emperor, he already had the power to fight a saint venerable. Boom boom boom. After a few more explosions, the entire Imperial Army camp was in an uproar. Countless soldiers holding torches surrounded Buhai from all directions and aimed their bows and arrows at Buhai. Hey! Buhai's eyes turned cold after his iron fists collided and forced Feng Jixing to retreat. He already knew that his plan for tonight's sneak attack had failed. His opponent was well prepared, and Feng Jixing was not as weak as he had expected. The commander of Lanyan City's Imperial Army was extraordinarily powerful. It would take at least 50 rounds to kill him. However, there were more and more Imperial Army soldiers surrounding him, and he did not have that much time. Buhai leaped up and crushed the head of an Imperial guard with his battle boots. He laughed loudly and said, "You have more people, so I won't bother with you. There are more than 3,000 swordsmen on Dragon Rocky Mountain. If you want to attack the mountain, go ahead and attack. Let's see how many teeth you can break after gnawing this hard bone." Trying to leave. In the darkness, Wei Chou rode his horse forward with a longbow in his hand. Behind him was a group of soldiers from the Longdan army camp. Even Qin Yan and Feng Shi were here. Qin Yan shouted and rushed forward with his spear. "Get lost." Buhai waved his palm in the air, but it met with a martial spirit as hard as an iron plate. Qin Yan's dragon scale armor was known as the world's #1 defense-type martial spirit. How could it be so easily repelled? Being blocked by Qin Yan, the Imperial Army soldiers at the side immediately shot thousands of arrows. "You want to kill me with mere arrows?" Buhai was extremely arrogant. He waved his sleeve, and the chi of his domain surged out, twisting the arrows. He raised his palm, and the flame wolf martial spirit came out. Roar! A wave of flames fell into the crowd, and instantly, dozens of Imperial Army soldiers were on fire, and they howled miserably. However, Buhai ignored the attack of the Longdan army camp. Wei Chou, Luo Yu, Feng Shi, and the others drew their bows and arrows from afar, and after aiming, a round of fierce shots was fired. Pa pa pa! Most of the arrows were blocked, but one of the white diamond arrows passed through the range of Buhai's chi, and with a pu sound, it drilled into Buhai's arm. Bastard! Buhai flew into a rage out of humiliation, but he also knew that if he stayed any longer, he would definitely die. Just like the legends said, the Empire had an army called the Longdan Army Camp, and they had arrows that could pierce through battle armor. They were very powerful. As a holy domain expert, Buhai couldn't fight against thousands of soldiers and horses, but it was still relatively easy for him to escape. His right arm was dripping with blood, and Buhai took out the arrow. He gritted his teeth and threw it away. After rushing out of the Imperial Army's encirclement, he immediately stepped into the dense forest, and didn't return to Dragon Rocky Mountain. Saving his life was more important than anything else. Under the moonlight, Feng Jixing slowly sheathed his long saber, and with a faint smile on his face he said, "It seems like the disciples under Luo Lan aren't all that powerful. There are still idiots." Wei Chou stepped forward and said with a fist and palm salute, "General Feng, Buhai has been injured and abandoned Dragon Rocky Mountain. What should we do?" According to the original plan, attack the mountain tomorrow morning and uproot the forces of the House of Chivalry on Dragon Rocky Mountain. Wei Chou, after taking down Dragon Rocky Mountain, arranged for 500 soldiers from the Longdan army camp to guard Dragon Rocky Mountain and protect Dragon Rocky Village at the foot of the mountain from the harassment of the House of Chivalry. Lanyan City has neglected this place for too long. Yes. Feng Jixing looked at the direction where Buhai escaped from afar, and a trace of killing intent appeared in his eyes. He said, "Buhai, you can escape once, but you can't escape forever." In the early morning, the golden rays of the morning sun penetrated the clouds and shone on the earth. It was already late autumn, and the sky was sprinkled with white frost, as if it was a fine snow. Lin Muyu put a diamond coin on the table of the hunter's house and left without saying goodbye. He tied the Qianquan bag to his waist and wore the hunter's clothes with the dragon's spiritual sword on his back. He looked a bit like a chivalrous man in the mountains. He walked slowly along the rugged mountain road. When it was almost noon, he took out the flatbread in the Qianquan bag and chewed it hard. He felt that the most delicious thing in the world was nothing more than this. This was probably the happiness of living. The water in the water bag had a hint of sweetness. This was the mountain spring water of the hunter's house. After drinking a few mouthfuls, Lin Muyu continued his journey. But not long after, a figure sprang out of the jungle on one side. It was an old man in a golden costume, with blood on his arm. It seemed that he was injured, and the old man's face was full of hostility. It was the injured Buhai. He had already seen Lin Muyu, so he immediately walked over and asked, "Young man, I want to ask you something. Do you know how to get to Songnan Province?" "Songnan Province?" Lin Muyu pointed to the east and said, "It should be this direction. Just follow the official road and you will reach it." "Good, thank you." Buhai cupped his hands and smiled. His eyes stopped on the hilt of the dragon's spiritual sword on Lin Muyu's back. He could not help but laugh. "Looking at your attire, you should be a hunter in the mountains. It is rare for a hunter to have such an exquisite long sword." Oh. Lin Muyu's spiritual pulse technique had already sensed that the old man's dou qi was rapidly increasing. He did not come with good intentions. He immediately smiled and said, "Yes, it was passed down from my ancestors. Can you give it to this old man?" Buhai laughed and said, "That won't do." Lin Muyu had a petty look on his face. "Then this old man will have to steal it myself?" Buhai smiled with a sinister look. Lin Muyu also smiled. He raised his hand and pulled out the dragon's spiritual sword. He slightly smiled and said, "This old man's sword does not kill nameless ghosts. Tell me your name first." "A trash like you dares to call yourself this old man?" Buhai laughed loudly. The greed in his eyes intensified. The moment the dragon's spiritual sword was unsheathed, he was even more certain that it was a peerless sword. He sneered. "In the dragon-seeking forest there is nothing that I, Buhai, cannot obtain." His iron palm suddenly opened. The flame wolf martial spirit roared unceasingly. He actually wanted to forcibly snatch the sword. This was exactly what Lin Muyu wanted. The opponent was an expert of the sanctuary, so she first pretended to be weak, and her own chi strength was only at the human realm. Just as Buhai was grabbing the sword, she suddenly raised her dou qi to its peak state. The long sword suddenly flipped over, and a spiral chi strength lingered around it. The true dragon primary fire was rapidly injected into it. The rapidly spiraling dragon's spiritual sword was not something that could be seized with bare hands. Buhai was startled. He felt the vigorous and overbearing power of the stars in Lin Muyu's body. His eyes swept over. A starlight shot out from Lin Muyu's palm and directly hit his back. "Sneak attack this old man? In your dreams." Buhai suddenly condensed his dou qi to form a battle armor behind him to resist Lin Muyu's fierce attack. But he didn't know how strong Lin Muyu's strength was. The power of the star art surged on his arm, and directly hit Buhai's back with initial starlight. Puff. Buhai vomited blood immediately. He had lost at least 30% of his strength due to his injuries. Now that he had stumbled into a third heavenly layer heaven realm expert with a unique skill like Lin Muyu, he was on par with her in terms of strength, but he was utterly defeated in terms of moves. Even the Seven Brilliance Demon Emperor was amazed by the constellation art, so how could Buhai possibly resist it? After defeating the enemy with one move, Lin Muyu suddenly opened her hand and grabbed Buhai's throat. She shouted in a low voice, "Who the hell are you?" Buhai gritted his teeth. "Your grandfather is the disciple of Venerable Luolan. If you dare to kill me, Venerable Luolan will definitely not let you go." "Luolan's people?" Lin Muyu frowned. "What, are you afraid now?" Buhai's eyes were filled with pride. Lin Muyu's eyes were cold. "Look at your age. You have lived in the stomach of a dog. Die in peace. Luolan will accompany you to hell sooner or later." True dragon essence fire surged between her fingers and began to burn Buhai's throat. Buhai wouldn't wait for death. He punched with his left fist, and the power of the flame wolf lingered around his fist. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. She raised her other arm and spread her fingers. A purple gold gourd emerged, and a boundless cyclone quickly absorbed everything in the world. In the next moment, Buhai's flame wolf martial soul was forcibly sucked into the golden gourd. How? Buhai was shocked. In the next moment, the true dragon essence fire quickly swallowed his body. Chapter 324. Grabbing the purple gold gourd in his hand, Lin Muyu shook it vigorously. Sure enough, the flame wolf was still roaring inside the gourd. This was really amazing. Could the gourd absorb other people's martial spirits? Originally, he thought it was as simple as absorbing energy, but what to do with the absorbed martial spirit was also a big problem. No matter, he would refine it first. He immediately took out the treasure refining cauldron. Under the scorching flames, the flame wolf howled miserably. Even though it was a fire martial spirit, it could not withstand the temperature of the treasure refining cauldron. Woo-woo. Not long after, the flame wolf unexpectedly prostrated and made a gesture of submission. Lin Muyu's heart moved. He raised his palm and ordered, "Enter my body and work for me." The flame wolf unexpectedly cried out in joy, but just as it was about to jump into Lin Muyu's blood vessels, its body suddenly shone brightly. The golden gourd came out of its body and rapidly spun. Waves of martial spirit's power rushed out and bombarded the flame wolf several steps back, causing it to fall into the treasure refining cauldron. My goodness, the golden gourd is repelling me. Just as Lin Muyu was hesitating, the crimson crystal dragon that was connected to his soul suddenly woke up. The dragon's soul pounced out and bit off the flame wolf's head. Then it swallowed the flame wolf in a few bites. Fuck! Lin Muyu was completely petrified. The things in front of him were completely beyond his understanding. The golden gourd martial spirit could steal other people's martial spirits, but it could not be used by itself. Xiaolong even ate Buhai's martial spirit. What was going on? As for why it could not have an offensive martial spirit like the flame wolf, perhaps it was because a person's body could not accommodate two martial spirits at the same time? If not for this reason, then there was only one other reason. The golden gourd disliked the flame wolf martial spirit, and did not want to coexist with it. If this was the case, then the golden gourd martial spirit was too arrogant. Lin Muyu shook her head and checked Buhai's body. She found the emblem of the Hall of Chivalry's Grand Chess user. This guy was actually a Grand Chess user? It seemed that the power of the House of Chivalry had once again infiltrated the territory of Lanyan City. No matter what, he had to return to Lanyan City and see Qinin first. By the time Lin Muyu arrived at the outskirts of the city, it was already late at night. The walls of Lanyan City had been repaired, but the damage caused by the battle 3 years ago could still be vaguely seen. Lin Muyu looked up at the cracks and burn marks on the walls. She couldn't help but think of the battle 3 years ago. Chu Huai had died in battle outside these walls, and Zhenxiang had died right on top of these walls. Standing there silently, Lin Muyu's heart was filled with sadness and excitement. She was about to see the girl she deeply loved. 3 years later, what would Qin look like now? As he approached the walls, several imperial guards immediately raised their bows and aimed at him. Who are you? Don't you know that entering Lanyan City at night is prohibited? Lin Muyu looked up at him. She didn't know him, so she said, Who is in charge here? I am in charge. A centurion looked at her with contempt and said, What's wrong? Do you know me? No, I don't know you. Lin Muyu smiled. Your rank is still too low. I want to ask, who is your superior? Lord Baiyu, the centurion of the Imperial Guards. What's wrong? What about my superior? Humph. The centurion looked displeased. Are you a spy from the Iha kingdom? How dare you ask about our Imperial Guards? Someone, open the door and bring him to me. Yes. A small door on the side of the main gate quickly opened, and a dozen cavalrymen quickly mounted their horses and rushed out. However, Lin Muyu didn't escape. Facing the light of the torches, she looked at the crowd with a smile in her eyes. I didn't expect that after 3 years, the Imperial Guards would treat me like this. The centurion looked angry. You speak as if you are the king of heaven. Who are you? If you don't tell me, I'll kill you. Admit it. Are you a spy from the Iha kingdom? No. You still won't admit it. I won't admit it. You're asking for death. I want to live. You bastard. You're shameless. While the two of them were arguing, a group of people suddenly came from afar. The general at the front shouted in a low voice. Who's making a ruckus here in the middle of the night? Don't you know the rules of the capital? The centurion quickly turned around and cupped his fists. Deputy Commander, this kid insisted on barging into the capital at night. He even inquired about the names of our high-ranking generals. I suspect that this kid is a spy from the Iha kingdom. Deputy Commander, please make a judgment. The deputy commander was none other than Zhang Wei. With a face full of beard, he rode forward with a long saber in hand. He looked down at Lin Muyu and said in a dignified voice, Kid, raise your head. Let me see your face. Old Zhang, long time no see. Lin Muyu slowly raised his head. His handsome face had a bright smile under the flickering light of the torches. Ah! Zhang Wei trembled and fell from his horse. He scrambled to his feet and knelt on one knee, cupping his fists. Master! Master Lin Muyu, is that really you? Lin Muyu helped Zhang Wei up and smiled. Why? Are you suspecting that I'm a ghost? Zhang Wei gently grabbed Lin Muyu's arm and couldn't help laughing. No, you're not a ghost. Sir, you're really not dead. Heavens, this is great news. Shoo. Lin Muyu whispered. Don't spread this news. Take me into the city first. I want to find a place to take a hot bath. Also, help me find a set of clothes that fits me. It would be best if it's the Imperial Guard's armor. Yes. Zhang Wei smiled and cupped his fists. Although Lanyan City no longer has the Imperial Guard, there are many Imperial Guard's armor in the armory. Sir, please follow me. There's a place to take a bath in the Imperial Guard's camp. The sky was filled with stars. Lin Muyu fetched a horse and rode it with Zhang Wei on Tongtian Street. Sir, aren't you going to see His Highness first? Zhang Wei was still excited. Did you know? Everyone thought you were dead. His Highness Princess Shi and Head Deacon Chu Yao have been thinking about you day and night. Now that they see that you're still alive, they'll definitely be overjoyed. Why don't Old Zhang take you to see Her Highness before she sleeps? Old Zhang is now the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, and has the authority to see His Highness directly. No. Lin Muyu laughed bitterly. I've been in a coma for almost 3 years. Do you think my dirty appearance is suitable to see His Highness? Zhang Wei couldn't help but laugh. He scratched his head. I almost forgot. Old Zhang is a boorish person and doesn't understand things like love. If Sir wants to see His Highness, you must dress up. Lin Muyu also blushed. Look at what you're saying. Not long after, they entered the Imperial Army's main camp. Lin Muyu went to take a bath while Zhang Wei stood guard outside the door, and helped him prepare a set of Imperial Guard armor. After washing up, Lin Muyu shaved his beard and hastily cut his hair a few times. Although it was messy, he still looked outstanding. When Lin Muyu put on the armor, even Zhang Wei could not help but exclaim, This set of armor looks as though it was made for Milord. Haha, Lin Muyu said. Old Zhang, tell me what happened in the past 3 years. Zhang Wei nodded. Sir, after you were killed by Luolan, Lanyan City was massacred. More than 1 million people died. Then, Princess Shi mobilized 50,000 soldiers from Qihai City and 100,000 soldiers from the Demon Clan to attack Lanyan City. After that, Muyu City and Qihai City both sent their troops. The Iha Kingdom's troops retreated again and again. After a great defeat at Wugu City, they returned to Lingnan. Now the 6 provinces of Lingbei are all within our empire's territory. Oh, Lin Muyu murmured. Su Muyun and Tanglan are finally willing to send their troops? Zhang Wei smiled awkwardly. Sir, please be careful with your words. Now Duke Yun and Duke Lan are the 2 most important ministers in the empire. More than 80% of the empire's military power is in their hands. Even though Her Highness is the Empress, she has very little real power. It can be said that the Qin Empire now belongs to Tang and Su. Old Zhang will only say this once. Otherwise, General Feng will scold me again. Alright, let's go see Xiaoyin. Yes. In Zetian Palace Hall, the candlelight swayed slowly in the breeze. Many files were piled up on the Empress's table. Qin Yin was kneeling there with a tired look on her face. She was flipping through the memorials one by one as she slowly reviewed them. Su Muyin was sitting on the other side, holding a military book in his hand, and was studying it with his eyes narrowed. An attendant at the side said softly, Your Highness, after the reconstruction of the Tianshu army, the position of commander has been left undecided. The Ministry of War has submitted a request to decide on the candidate for the commander of the Tianshu army. Qin Yin pursed her red lips and asked, Grandfather, who do you think is the best candidate to be the commander of the Tianshu army? Su Muyin frowned and said, Let Su Long be it. He is the deputy commander of the Iron Blade army. He is good at fighting and has great strategy. Qin Yin said, Actually, in terms of strategy and ability, Luo Yu Fengxi and Qin Yan are several times better than Su Long. I feel that one of them can be chosen to lead the Tianshu army. After all, General Su Long is currently the deputy commander of the Iron Blade army. As I said before, Xiaoyin, you don't have to worry about the affairs of the army. Su Muyin smiled and said, Grandfather will arrange everything for you. Don't worry, I'm tired and will go to sleep first. Guards, protect Her Highness well. Don't let anything happen to her. Outside the door, a group of guards from Muyu City cupped their fists and said, Yes, Duke Yun. Qin Yin sat there blankly, and her eyes flickered with humiliation and helplessness. Not long after Su Muyin left, an attendant knocked on the door and said, Your Highness, the Deputy Commander of the Imperial Guards, General Zhang Wei, requests an audience. Zhang Wei. Qin Yin was stunned and said, Invite Sir Zhang Wei in. Yes. Zhang Wei pushed open the door and entered. Behind him was a general wearing a white robe. However, he had lifted his white cloak to cover his face, so it was impossible to tell who he was. Your Highness. Zhang Wei cupped his fists and said with a smile, Congratulations, Your Highness. Qin Yin slowly stood up. Ever since Zhang Wei had entered, she had not looked at him at all. Her gaze had been fixed on the person behind Zhang Wei. He was dressed in the armor of the Imperial Guard, which she had not seen in a long time. Although it looked ordinary and unremarkable, the hilt of a sword protruding from the cloak behind him was incomparably familiar. At this moment, Qin Yin's shoulders trembled slightly. She stepped on a pile of memorials and walked down the stairs in a daze. She murmured, Can you lift your cloak and let me see? Lin Muyu gently lifted the cloak, and a handsome face appeared in front of Qin Yin. He still had that familiar bright smile on his face. Xiaoyin, how are you? Chapter 325. Qin Yin stood there in a daze as if she had been petrified. Her beautiful eyes stared straight at Lin Muyu as tears flowed from her eyes. She shook her head slowly. It's not true. It's definitely not true. You are not him at all, right? Lin Muyu naturally understood the pain that Qin Yin had suffered for 3 years. He also understood that she could not believe that it was him in front of her. He smiled and said softly, Xiaoyin, it's really me. I'm not dead. If you don't believe me, look. He opened his hand and the golden gourd martial spirit slowly appeared in his palm and rotated gently. A few battle spirit energy lingered around his arm. He smiled and said, I slept for 3 years and spent 3 years to heal the wound caused by Luolan. It was the self-healing ability of the profound spirit ruler that saved me. Do you believe me now? You. Qinin looked at him with tears streaming down her face. The next moment, she opened her arms and threw herself into his arms. She cried loudly. I thought I would never see you again in this life. I thought you really didn't want Xiaoyin anymore. Lin Muyu gently stroked her back and said, How could that be? I said I would definitely come back to see you. Xiaoyin, don't cry. I'm fine now. Qinin shook her head forcefully, but she still could not stop crying. It was as if she wanted to vent all the pain and longing she had for the past 3 years. Her tears wetted Lin Muyu's neck and collar. There aren't many armors left for the royal guards. You've ruined this one with your tears. I'm afraid there won't be any more left. Lin Muyu said softly with a smile. Qinin wiped her tears and looked at him with teary eyes. She smiled through her tears and said, Then the Ministry of Works can continue to forge armors for the royal guards. It's not like there's no more material. But the royal guards are all gone. Lin Muyu murmured. Yes, the Imperial Guard is gone. Qinin said with a sense of loss. Xiaoyin, you are now the Empress and no longer the little princess. You can't keep relying on me. That's not good. Lin Muyu said as she patted her back. However, Qinin still wrapped her snow-white arms around his neck and said lovingly, But I'm worried that once I let go, you'll disappear and everything in front of me will just be a beautiful dream. I won't. Lin Muyu said lightly, Since I'm back, I won't leave. I'll always be by your side to accompany you and protect you. Don't worry. At this moment, a group of accompanying officials looked at them with astonished gazes. Many of these people were newly promoted officials and didn't know Lin Muyu at all. Naturally, they were also very astonished. The high and mighty Empress Qinin actually threw herself into a man's arms. This was really an unprecedented event. Alright, let's do that. Lin Muyu looked at Qinin and asked, What does Xiaoyin plan to do for me? Qinin moved her lips and said, Confer me the title of General-in-Chief and appoint me as the commander of the Imperial Army. Help me rebuild the Imperial Army and stay by Xiaoyin's side. How about that? Lin Muyu lowered her head to look at Qinin and smiled as if she had seen through her thoughts. Qinin couldn't help but blush and said, Why are you looking at me like that? I just want you to stay by my side. Lin Muyu smiled again and said, Big Brother Feng is already by your side as the commander of the Imperial Army. At this time, Xiaoyin needs someone to charge and break through enemy lines and seize land for you. This person is probably me. So there's no need to say anything more. If we can really expand the Longdan army camp, I'm willing to lead the troops to conquer Iha country. But you just came back to my side. Qinin pouted and said with a bit of rebuke, I know. Lin Muyu sat by her side again and said, I also want to stay by your side. Who wouldn't like to have good wine, good food, and beautiful women by our side every day? Zhang Wei nodded repeatedly and said, I like it too. You are not allowed to speak. I'm not talking to you. Lin Muyu continued to look at Qinin and said, It's just that Xiaoyin is now the Empress but has suffered all kinds of grievances. This can't be. Father didn't entrust this to me before he left. So, what Xiaoyin has lost as her brother, I will definitely take it all back, inch by inch. Okay. Qinin nodded and said, But you still have to accompany me more. It's been 3 years. Xiaoyin misses you. Got it. Zhang Wei asked, Madam, why don't old Zhang return to the Imperial Army camp and you stay and serve the Empress tonight? Qinin's face immediately turned red. Lin Muyu was also a little puzzled. This Zhang Wei's words were getting more and more straightforward. How could she say it in a roundabout way? No need. I want to go back to the Holy Temple to sleep. I haven't seen Grandfather Guyang in a long time. Then, Qinin blinked and said, Can Xiaoyin go with you to the Holy Temple? Tonight. I don't want to leave brother you. This? Lin Muyu was a little speechless and said, Old Zhang, think of a way. Zhang Wei grinned and said, in the end, you still have to rely on me. How about this? Your Highness, just say that you are tired and go to Phoenix Perching Hall to change into a guard's uniform and sneak out with us to the Holy Temple. Tomorrow morning, you can rush back to Zetian Hall without anyone knowing. But grandfather's guards will be watching. This Lin Muyu frowned and said, don't worry, they won't know. Okay. At Phoenix Perching Hall, Qinyin went into her bedroom to change. In fact, she just needed to put on the Empress's clothes and the guard's armor. Lin Muyu and Zhang Wei secretly swapped Qinyin and rode out of Zetian Hall in the night. At night, Tongtian Street was deserted and was no longer as prosperous as it was 3 years ago. Although the shops along the street had been renovated and merchants had moved in, it was still a city that had been baptized by blood, and the people were still living under a cloud of worry. In the distance, the Holy Temple and the Spiritual Medicine Department looked at each other. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be moved. Was Chu Yao in the Spiritual Medicine Department? Qinyin saw this and burst into laughter. How about this? After visiting Great Deacon Guiyang, I will accompany you to the Spiritual Medicine Department to visit Great Deacon Chu Yao. She will definitely be wild with joy when she sees that you is still alive. Okay. Lin Muyu rode his horse slowly to the front of the Holy Temple. The deep pit where Lei Hong died in battle had already been filled up. Fallen leaves fell on the street with the wind, and it looked exceptionally desolate. Dismounting from his horse, Lin Muyu looked at the Holy Temple from afar, and suddenly felt a pang of bitterness. He suddenly remembered what Lei Hong had said to him. From the day he entered the Holy Temple, his soul was branded with the Holy Temple. Therefore, no matter how high he flew or how far he went, he would eventually return to the Holy Temple. At this moment, Lin Muyu returned to the Holy Temple again. It was as if his fate had been predetermined long ago. Looking up at the golden words on the Holy Temple, Lin Muyu sighed and clenched his fists. Zhang Wei rode forward and said to the 2 guards, Deputy Commander of the Imperial Guards, Zhang Wei, requests an audience with Great Deacon Guiyang. The guard said respectfully, Sir Zhang Wei, I'm afraid the Great Deacon is already asleep. Then wake him up. Zhang Wei smiled slightly. Tell him that I, Zhang Wei, have great news to tell him. The guards were startled, then smiled and said, If that's the case, Sir Zhang Wei, please wait in the guest hall. This subordinate will go and wake the Great Deacon up to see you. The 2 behind. My subordinates, can they come in together? Of course, please come in. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.